Let's have a Patrick Swayze Christmas.
Right. Hit it, Cambot.
Oh, I start. I get it.
I'm sorry.
Okay, pick it up. Open up your heart and let the Patrick Swayze Christmas in.
We'll gather at the roadhouse with our next of kin.
Not bad.
And Santa can be our regular Saturday night thing. We'll decorate a bar stool and gather round and sing.
Oh, let's have a Patrick Swayze Christmas this year.
Or we'll tear your throat out and kick you in the ear.
Hold it a second. Cambot, stop it. Crow, I don't know if I think this is an appropriate sentiment anymore for Christmas.
Hey, what? Like a good action sequence don't belong at Christmas?
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Rollin' 20s. We are the show that reminds you to always spay and neuter your animal man. I am Jeremy.
I'm Sal Fringo.
And I'm Carolyn Urban.
We'll explain this in a minute. Remember, you can find this show and several others in the MSP library at missionstarpodcast.com. You can subscribe to the show on iTunes and Stitcher. Like us on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter at rolling_20s. You can send me any fan mail, suggestions for the show, or hate mail at mspfreight@yahoo.com. For the intro and outro, we're using the music of Machine Supremacy. You can find their stuff mostly for free download at machinesupremacy.com, as well as their latest albums on Amazon. And the clip you heard before we started was Have a Patrick Swayze Christmas from Mystery Science Theater 3000. It's pretty self-explanatory. Now, I have to explain that I'm really glad these people stopped by. What happened was we recorded the usual show that with the usual suspects, Steve, Jesse, and V. Unfortunately, somewhere in compression, the show was lost, and I have no real good explanation for it. And unfortunately, the others have different things to do during the holidays, so I couldn't get them all together to discuss everything. Plus, they, as you can imagine, they didn't want to discuss the same news twice in 2 days. So I asked a couple of friends to stop by, and thankfully Carolyn, who we interviewed a couple weeks ago as our guest cosplayer, stopped by, as did Sal Fringo, who we interviewed about 6 weeks ago in regards to Fangasm and Kamikaze. Thank you so much for putting up with me.
Not a problem, glad to be here.
It's a huge problem. I hate doing it. But I'm really looking forward to that huge check in the mail. That's the only reason I agreed.
You'll get a case of Oreos, I promise. Carolyn, I know I didn't get much of a chance to tell you because Sal agreed after you came on because I wanted more than one person to talk to because you said you weren't sure about your witty banter. And besides, the more heads, the more likely we are to get something funny out of it. And he's one of the funnier people I knew that was available.
Well, thank you very much.
You know, I'd ask Andrew, but I'm sure Lisa would have beaten him over the head if I took up a couple hours of his time.
Yeah, no, it was surprising that... that's why him and I didn't room together. I was afraid of her popping in every now and then.
I'm sure she'd need a little bit of personal time with him. But, what I'm going to do is go over the news and Kickstarters with these fine people, and then afterwards I'll go ahead and recap the interview we had with the project lead on City of Titans, Chris Hare. He's probably going to hear this and post it on City of Titans. I apologize for losing it, but I'll recall as much as I can without breaking an NDA, I promise.
Good luck. May the force be with you.
The way it's going, I'm just going to be a fat Sith Lord. No,
Not necessarily a bad thing.
It depends on the force powers.
Execute Order 66.
Something, cookies, something. We'll start with the Kickstarter corner as we usually do. As I said before, we usually use the music of Machine Supremacy at the beginning and ending of the show. I like their mix of metal and chiptunes. The Swedish metal band that I've come to really love in the last year. They actually have their own fundraiser going on for what they call a world tour, which appears to mean far around Europe. You can find it at machinesupremacy.com/WTF, which everyone swears is not what the fuck to me. It means world tour fundraiser. But actually, they've unlocked 11 countries so far. They're going to Finland, Russia, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, the UK, Germany, the Netherlands, Poland, Belgium, and the Czech Republic.
I'm sure the Polish don't say Poland properly either, so. You're okay.
Okay. They have 300 backers, and with those 300 backers, they've already raised 32,420 euros. At 35,000 euros, they'll unlock another country, which would be the 12th in this list, and their fundraiser is actually going till January 12th. So I've been telling the others, I wish they would come out here, except with the amount of money they're raising, if they made any stops out here, it would be either Florida or New York, and I'd have to find another $3,000 to make it across the country.
Hey, that'd benefit me if they came to New York.
Are you familiar with their music?
Huh?
Have you heard their music?
Nope, but it'd be cool if they came.
You just lord that over me and say, ha ha.
What would be the next country, did they say?
No, they haven't said what it is until they actually have the money and they set it out there. They haven't even set dates for these places. They just said these are the countries they're going to.
Ooh, suspense.
I imagine that Spain or France has got to be in there somewhere. You know, but who knows? Maybe the French would just laugh and surrender. And as far as Kickstarters, we've been following the Looking for Group animated series pilot. I wasn't very aware of this series going in. Did either of you know about it?
No.
No, I'm new to the whole Kickstarter thing, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, I've only been following like board games and stuff.
Okay.
And Mighty Number 9.
Oh, all right. Well, Looking for Group, as the others explained it to me, is basically what would happen if all those sideways conversations you have over D&D happened in the World of Warcraft vein. It's a bunch of characters that have interesting sidebars and just all kinds of character flaws, including a necromancer who sang a variation of a Little Mermaid song that's called I'll Slaughter Your World. They were trying to fund an animated series pilot. Unfortunately, it did not go well because it ended... let me see. There's no dates on this. Unfortunately, it ended a few days ago. They had a goal of $196,595 Canadian. After 1,333 backers, they only had $68,452 Canadian. It's a shame this didn't go through, but they apparently have kind of a spotty record with Kickstarters. They get some short videos done, others can't, and they had a pretty big goal at nearly $200,000.
Yikes.
I wonder if they would have done better just starting smaller.
She's got a lot
They actually had guys like Steve Bloom signed up to do voice acting for it.
But it becomes a problem is when
But, oh well. Hopefully they'll come back with a streamlined budget and they'll try again.
you're out at like...
And we've also been following The Spider King. It's a graphic novel by Josh Van of Melbourne, Australia. Short story of this is Vikings versus aliens.
Ooh, I'd read that.
Way back in the day when I was, I don't know, 10 or so, they came out with a Vikings versus aliens, like the AVP aliens. Comic book, and it was one of the first comic books that I got into that were aliens, and it was just such a badass comic book.
That sounds interesting.
It's a very awesome concept, aliens versus Vikings.
Well, this is more like, this looks more like Hagar the Horrible versus the Mars Attacks aliens.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
It still sounds entertaining.
Like high-pitched Viking music to kill these guys.
Yeah, and occasionally a Swedish guy running around with a spatula going, bork, bork, bork. This one ended 5 days ago. That would have been, oh my gosh, would have been the, 11th? December 11th? It had 626 backers, a goal of 19,500 Australian. This one ended at 25,842 Australian, so he gets to make this novel.
Oh.
All right.
You can find this work eventually, I imagine, at thespiderking-comic.com. And something that caught our attention, but we're not quite sure what to make of it, was the 9DKP anime project. He was trying to make a series called Cats vs. Zombies. I'm at a loss at how to describe it. What? Carolyn, you were about to say something?
Are we talking like actual like animal cats or like cat-human hybrids?
Yeah, we're talking the anthropomorphic cats.
I'd like to see Thundercats.
It looks like some kind of cross between Hello Kitty and Power Rangers, frankly. It was an animated series
I
pilot.
had this image of a furry just fighting down like these zombies.
We were a little confused as to how this would go ourselves. It's actually gotten weirder since we talked about it a couple days ago, because it was being done by Eric Scarecrow of Glendale, Queens, New York. He had 104 backers, a goal of just under $160,000. He raised $18,696, and as of yesterday, he canceled the Kickstarter. It had woefully little of its goal, and I think it only had 2 or 3 days to go. It looks like he just plain pulled the plug on it. That's a curious reaction. I've never seen anybody actually do that before. Jesse pointed out to me that sometimes these things get a massive amount of money. In the last couple days? I guess he didn't have the patience to wait through it. And another thing we've been following that is just funny to say to me is Super Blow the Cartridge. It's a retro gaming graphic novel. It's basically a bunch of Saturday and Sunday morning comic strips regarding old games. And it's being done by Cameron Davis of Brisbane, Australia. This one ends in 15 hours. But it does have 63 backers, a goal of $1,000 Australian. He's already at $2,751 Australian. It's a lot of simple comics, but I love the concept because one of them is about a guy looking at the dilapidated basketball hoop attached to his garage. He thinks to himself, man, I haven't played basketball in years, and the next thing you see is him on a Super Nintendo playing NBA Jam. It's not the greatest looking art, but this is right up my alley as far as overall humor. So I'm going to be looking forward to that coming out probably at a convention sometime soon.
I can just imagine, like, just different times where I've thought of a game where it's like, oh, that would be so much fun to play, and then, like, I go back and play, like, GoldenEye or some old game on the Super Nintendo and be like, oh, yeah, I'm totally playing this.
I've been stuck on retro games for a while. I think I have the Dreamcast and Genesis libraries for my 360. Sal, do you own any of the older systems?
Well, just recently, actually, the other day, I had to go through, like, a lot of my old storage, and so I found, like, a whole bin of just cables and stuff for Nintendo, original Nintendo and Super Nintendo, and a whole bunch of old games with that. And I was just like, I don't even know if I'm ever going to play these games ever again, sadly.
Oh, it looks like we lost Sal for a bit. I didn't notice he somehow disconnected from this.
Oh, no!
Oh, hopefully he'll reappear. I'll keep an eye out for him. I was wondering, he was very engaged, and all of a sudden he was very quiet. Hopefully I haven't been ditched. Oh, my God. Wouldn't be the first time a date's ditched me, but,
Well, he just had the thought, maybe I want to play some Super Nintendo. So.
Point to you. I like it. There's also Fearless Dawn. It's something new I found. The Eye of the Beholder comic book by Steve Mannion. It's of Hewitt, New Jersey. It's apparently the second in a line of graphic novels he's trying to turn out. He has 20 days to go, and it ends on January 7th. 296 backers. He had a goal of only $6,800. He actually is well past goal at $15,925.
That's more than double. Or
yeah.
Less than double, a little bit.
Well, I mean, obviously he's already got the first one. This is the second in the series, and he's got a fan base. He's got a fan base fervent enough that they're obviously willing to give him money without, with just the promise of the second book so far. So I got to applaud him if he's already built that much of a reputation.
Mm-hmm. Well, if the first book must be really good if they have that much of a backing.
It does make me want to look it up. I'm curious now. I'm still a little unsure of the story. He calls her a feisty action hero, but he also says that she has to escape the clutches of one-eyed Hans, which sounds like the beginning of the worst hentai ever. So, I'm curious to look it up. I'll probably see if I can find it later on.
Yeah.
The weirdest project I have seen in ever on Kickstarter is called Power Up 3.0. Have you heard of this thing?
No.
It is a paper airplane you can control from a smartphone. It's a small motor and a Bluetooth transceiver about the size of a quarter that you can run across the long axis of a paper airplane and literally fly it like a small remote control plane. This thing has
Bluetooth?
I think there's an Android version as part of the stretch goals, but most of it has to do with running it through an iPad or an iPhone. Is the freakiest thing I've ever seen, but here's the kicker. It has 38 days to go and ends on January 25th. It has 12,063 backers. The goal was only $50,000. They have $663,254. There's a lot of people out here who want to fly paper airplanes.
Yeah, well, on your phone. Imagine. No, just think of it like all the junior high kids, like.
Oh, that's true.
You know, paper messaging each other through the planes.
Yeah, that means you're not. You're not just annoying the teacher by throwing planes at the blackboard. Now you're actually hitting her in the back of the head with it.
Because you can aim now, or pass notes, or who knows what.
Well, this isn't just a fly-by-night. It's actually been. It won the Best of Toy Fair 2013 in Popular Science. Has been mentioned in Uncreate, VB, Wired, Super Compressor, Engadget, Daily Mail, Yahoo Games, Gizmodo, Mac Forever, Gizmag, MakeUseOf.com, and several others.
Well, now we know where all the money came from.
I suppose that's true. I hadn't thought about it in quite that format. But, yeah, you're right. A lot of people are just indulging their inner child, and I can't think of a bad reason for this. It's just, I wouldn't expect $600,000 on this kind of project.
Well, I'm just curious where all that money's going to go. I mean,
yeah,
you
there's
can only buy up so much paper.
Well, fortunately, they don't supply the paper. They just supply the motor, which I think only costs about $75 retail.
Dang it! So no like fancy stationery, like
no gold leaf or anything. No fold-up pilots or anything weird like that. Something else we saw, which is kind of odd, was somebody has a GoFundMe for Black Dog Hobby and Game. Now, I think this came across me on Facebook because Jen Tate out of Illinois, she wants to start a tabletop board and game place called Black Dog Hobby and Game. I'm surprised I can't say that yet. She wants to do it in her hometown, which is a smaller place in Illinois. I forget the exact city. Oh, it's McChesney Park. I don't think she's advertising this terribly well because she has a goal of $17,600. There's no definitive endpoint to this. The problem is, though, that they have, I believe, 13 donations, and the total is $677.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Well, GoFundMe is like, I've only ever seen maybe 2 people ever use it, and it's always been through Facebook.
Oh, really?
I think it's just a harder. I never even heard of it until a couple months ago when a friend of mine decided to do her own fundraiser on it. I've usually only heard things through Kickstarter.
Okay, I mean, this project was the first I had heard of it. I wasn't aware of GoFundMe, but I imagined after Kickstarter and Indiegogo, there's several other places like it. It's just a matter, though, that we discussed it a little bit because there's been geek bars that have been funded. I've heard of at least 2 of them that have been funded through Kickstarters in different places. The problem with trying to fund this place through crowdfunding is that unless you live somewhere around McChesney Park, there's really nothing for you after you fund the project. You know,
right. Well, if you're not local anyway, yeah.
Right. I mean, other places, there's always that chance that you'll visit that city, maybe grab a plate of food at the bar or in a restaurant or what have you. Most of them offer some kind of comestible, some reason for you to come around besides just, you know, the types of books and products you could probably order over the internet anyway. So I think that's where this one went wrong. You know, not that they did anything terrible, but it is kind of hard to justify.
Yeah, it's just a weird concept to me. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I wish better for them, but I don't see this going well. And we'll keep pushing on here.
Okay.
We also have board game storage chests, tokens, inserts, and more. It's being done by Tabletop Games out of Austin, Texas. I asked Steve about this. He'd like to do it, but he can't afford to back it right now. It's an acrylic chest that people make at various sizes. Think of it as the ultimate footlocker to keep like everything you need for tabletop and CCG gaming. Even has like a card divider so you can subdivide your decks or your games if necessary.
Ooh.
You know, for I think just like $150, you can get this in a travel case size. It comes with all kinds of mini tokens that are, I guess, multi-purpose. And it looks like a small foot chest. Well, they have 15 days to go and it ends on January 2nd. 421 backers, a goal of $5,000. And it has currently $27,054.
I was going to say, they only need $5,000 to get that going? That's really awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it must not have a brick and mortar store. Obviously, this is something they're running out of their house for that much.
I wonder what it's made out of. Like, just all, like you said, it was acrylic, or? It
looks like some kind of acrylic and like particle board combination. You know, it's probably like particle board coated in something, so it's a little sturdier. It doesn't appear to be really expensive materials, but it is a pretty smart idea when you can take your token box, which fits inside, with your card box, which fits inside the storage locker, and this whole thing you can just pick up and take with you.
Yeah,
you know,
that's really nice.
I mean, one of their longer card boxes actually fits inside like a briefcase, so you could carry it with you and make it look completely normal and just not let on that your flag is flying.
Well, and if you're like having to like, you know, if you're going to a convention or something and you have to like fly and pack things really tight, you want to bring your gamer stuff. Yeah,
that's about how. I wish it was that simple for me. Often I'm packing like 4 bags because everything has its own travel case.
I wonder how much this would like stand, like how long it would last before starting to wear down.
It's a good question. It's not something we can exactly play test, unfortunately.
No. But hey, if they're only asking for 5,000, I'm sure it might be worth trying. Like, I'd be interested to see what people think about it when they put out their products.
Yeah, I'll have to search around and see if I can find a review, because who knows? I may not be a heavy tabletop gamer these days, but that would still be useful.
You
see, V brought me something called Fire and Bone. They're tiny digitally captured metal animal skulls.
What?
It's Fire and Bone out of Brooklyn, New York. What they do is they use like 3D printers and scanners, and they've created very, very small animal skulls. You know, like American black bear and roe deer and red fox and like giraffes. And they're either bronze, they can be silver, they can be gold. They come with a chain so you can wear them around your neck. They come with bases so you can sit them down. She is very intrigued by this. I'm a little creeped by it.
You're gonna post pictures, right?
Yeah, there's always pictures associated so people can see what I'm talking about.
Okay, I gotta see this.
As well as links so everyone can take a look. It is... I don't quite know how to explain how I feel about it, because I understand that these are not actual miniature animal skulls. You know, no head shrinker came across and did the deed here. But at the same time, I don't fancy the idea of wearing a miniature of death around my neck. If that makes any sense now that I've said that out loud. But, you know, it has 21 days still in it. It has... It ends on Wednesday, January 8th, has 1,834 backers, a goal of $8,000. Just $8,000. They have raised $117,269. There's a lot of people out there I don't understand.
It must look really cool.
Well, I sent you a link in the Skype, so you can take a quick look while I'm vamping here. But they had several backers at $600. They even ran out of elite backers where somebody got a skull in gold with a base, with an 18-inch chain. You know, they ran out of $260 backers at 2 levels. They've run out of $190 backers at 1 level. They ran out of $150 backers at 1 level. Ran out of hundreds. They ran out of 70, ran out of 40, ran out of 35, ran out of 30, ran out of 25, ran out of 20. People are just throwing money at small skulls.
All right. I'm like looking at this right now. I don't know, it's pretty cool.
Well, I mean, it has, like I said, it has a little bit of kitsch to it, but I'm more surprised that people are throwing money at this like they're strippers.
Maybe they're using those like miniatures for a game or something. I don't know.
That would be horrible. You know, I got the top hat, I got the car, I got the red fox skull. What?
You know you'd do it.
I don't think so. 'Cause I would get sent to prison every turn.
I don't know, maybe it just has to be the right themed Monopoly version. You're just not...
The Walking Dead Monopoly?
Sure.
I could not imagine. I think I'd rather play SpongeBob Monopoly. Something else we've been talking about, because we interviewed her, is Lumen the Golden Warrior is Born. It's by Tonatine Mondragon, who played Lumeria in Who Wants to Be a Superhero? Sorry. She put together her own Kickstarter with the idea of creating the first superhero film. we discussed a couple times how there's no great backing for superheroines in movies, it seems, even by Marvel and DC.
No.
So she's put together her own project. It has 9 days to go and ends on Friday, December 27th. It has 33 backers, a goal of $15,950. Currently sits at $1,635.
Does she have like a character bio on her superheroine?
I believe it's based on the character she created in Who Wants to Be a Superhero, which is Lumeria. Superheroine who I believe has different levels of light powers.
Ooh.
It's based on when she finds an exotic medallion that leads her to the 7 Cities of Gold. It's an interesting idea. I'd like to see it on the big screen, although I gotta admit, at this point, the backing isn't coming through like I thought.
No. I don't think word gets out enough on things like this, unfortunately.
You do have to get a lot of people's attention before you start Kickstarters, is what I've seemed to have learned.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know how you do that without yelling about it, really making an ass of yourself on social media.
Yeah, well, cause you gotta get the ball rolling first.
Yeah.
I've never even heard of this, and that actually sounds really cool.
Well, something I'd never heard of until this week was Erstwhile 2, Grimm's Fairy Tale Anthology. The project is by Gina Briggs of Port St. Lucie, Florida. The idea is that she's taking the lesser-known Grimm's fairy tales, such as, Snow White and Rose Red, Brother and Sister, Iron Hans, Death of the Little Hen, and she's made a graphic novel anthology out of them.
That's cool.
Most of the stories appear to be by different artists. I'm pretty sure, I'd say they're by different writers, but we all know what they're based on anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It has 21 days to go and ends on January 8th. Has 272 backers, a goal of $25,000. Already sits at $10,064.
Hey.
This sounds like the kind of graphic novel or comic book I should hand to my kids. A bunch of old fables. They might actually learn something.
Well, if it's based on the original tales, we know it's not going to end all Disney-fied.
No, that's true, but these are the Grimm fairy tales that generally don't make it in movies and TV. These are the stories that may be worth hearing, frankly. Let alone, I'm curious about one that's titled Snow White and Rose Red. It makes me wonder if there's an extra story there I'm not aware of. Or maybe this is where the fable of Snow White came from.
Maybe. I want to say I know I've heard that title before, and it might just be from, flipping through one of the Grimm's books when I was...
I was about to say, are you sure it's not Ruby over at Rooster Teeth?
Hey, you never know. She could have been inspired somehow.
I had to ask. And something Steve and Jesse are very into is Pathfinder Dice Arena. It's by Luke.
Yeah.
You know this one?
Or Pathfinder? Yeah.
Well, somebody's created Pathfinder Dice Arena as a Kickstarter. It's done by Luke Peterschmidt out of Longview, Washington. It is a dice-rolling game of tournament competition and features heroes from the Pathfinder RPG. It ends on December 30th. Has 12 days to go. 674 backers, a goal of $35,000. Currently sits at $48,914.
Huh.
So now it's just a matter of him getting to his stretch goals and adding more stuff to it. The next stretch goal is at $51,000, where it says you'll meet someone in the tavern. Add uni to the base game. It sounds like you know more about this than I do.
And in my mind, I'm just thinking of the Duke Deegan music playing now, because everyone loves a good dice game. I actually had a good time playing Pathfinder. That was one of the first D&D type games I ever played.
Yeah,
and I really liked the folklore and stuff in that.
I actually miss D&D style games. I live in Los Angeles, well away from most of my friends who do this type of stuff. And I always enjoy an afternoon or evening sitting around a table, eating pizza, telling bad jokes, and actually telling a story somewhere in the middle.
Yep.
I will never forget when I had a monk character that was following a thief down a hallway who was too stupid to see a tripwire, and everybody threw roll saves for an explosion. Somehow the thief that tripped it was standing in the center of the explosion, was unharmed. I managed to roll that my monk wasn't harmed either, so we figured best we could that he somehow ended up in the eye of the explosion and she did a handstand on top of him.
Oh, no.
Meanwhile, half the characters in the party died.
You're at the eye of the storm.
We just happened to have the lighter in the middle of the room filled with gas. I don't know.
That's why I love playing those games. You really never know what can happen with things like that.
Yeah, it is the funny part is sometimes you roll too well and you have to make up excuses as to why you're awesome.
Yeah. Well, if you have an awesome DM, they'll let it happen too.
Oh, absolutely. Something else that something V brought up to us just during the botch recording was Squishy Forts, pillow fort construction kits by Ross Curry of Perth, Australia. Have you ever made couch forts?
Yes.
Okay, this is the adult version of that. It's a kit of large square foam blocks and foam block columns that you can put together and make forts out of.
I want one already.
You know, they come in various colors. You can get them in sets of, it appears to be like 5 square blocks and I think a dozen of the columns. And it's a pretty small project because it has 7 days to go and ends on December 24th, has 257 backers, a goal of just $25,000 Australian, already sits at $47,363 Australian. He has found people's inner childs.
Oh yeah. Inner child that grew up to be billionaires.
And the best part is, though, this thing, as it starts out, is you only need like $249 to get an opening set of this stuff. And for $249, you will get like 8 of the square, or it looks like a dozen of the squares. Just the squares, no columns. And the way you can keep this nice and keep people from thinking you're just a sloppy person who throws foam everywhere, you can fold those 10 into a couch.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, for $5... I'm sorry?
No, that would just be, I imagine, just a really more awesome version of an IKEA couch that just could be the coolest play fort ever.
Well, I mean, for $500, you can get a mega set, which is 19 of the squares, 16 of the columns, enough for a couch and a few other things to put together. I mean, this is an awesome idea, and he's already gotten through his 30,000 stretch goal, so these things don't just come in black and blue, they also come in pink and green now.
I was about to ask, what kind of color options do we have? But
well, if he gets up to 75,000, there will be all those colors plus yellow, light blue, purple, orange, and black.
Will he let you mix and match, or do you just get one color set?
Well, that's the thing, is there's a stretch goal that seems kind of hard to hit. It's 7 days away. At 100,000, you can get rainbow sets.
Ooh, I'd want that.
Or if you add $15 to your donation of any level, he'll make it a rainbow set.
Oh, well, that's easy enough then.
Are you kidding? If you pledge $500 Australian to this, you can get it in a custom fabric of your choice, like leopard print. You can make Kardashian forts.
If your couch, then you might want to pick what kind of upholstery it's going to be in.
I suppose so, but just my luck, there'll be rabbit pee all over it.
Oh, no.
And,
I wish I had a couple hundred for that. That would be really awesome.
I know. I mean, I have kids, and this would go great in whatever space I live in, but there's something that tells me if I ever did this, every afternoon it would just be my kids saying, Dad, come on, can we play? No! Get away from my fort!
Daddy's trying to film a podcast now. Go away.
My cushion of silence. Yeah, right.
Hey, they probably muffle the sounds really nicely.
Yeah, I'll remember that when my wife is smothering me. And remember we were talking about how Black Dog just doesn't have much to offer people if they're just doing tabletop games?
Yeah. I
found one that's old, but I think bears mentioning because somebody did a Kickstarter for the Cloak and Blaster Gaming Pub in Orlando, Florida. It was done by Andreas Zimmerman out in Orlando. It's not just a tabletop gathering place and store, but it's also a pub. They actually serve beer and food.
All right.
You know,
well, I mean, that comes hand in hand anyway. Why not have a food business at the same time?
Well, I think this was the bridge that's kind of missing in there because you got to admit, when most tabletop gamers get together in stores, it's in these very sterile environments. You can buy a couple extra items, but they get kind of upset when you put that soda down on the table.
Yeah.
You know, in this case, they actually had a sample menu like the Tri-4 Sampler. Gain ultimate power dipping chips into this snack trifecta of sauce, guacamole, and queso. The Killer Rabbit of Kerbanog. Munch on fresh-cut carrots, celery, and our house recipe hummus. Serve with warm pita wedges. This is no ordinary snack. The Lord Volda Tort. Dark chocolate cake filled with whipped cream and chocolate mousse. As sinful as the Dark Lord himself, sugar-dusted and served warm. And the Miss Marvelous Sangria. Crush the Skrull Invasion with a glass of Cabernet Sauvignon mixed with Sprite, a splash of pineapple, and cherry orange garnish. This is so up my alley.
That sounds so good. Like, not only does it have an awesome name, but they actually came up with an awesome recipe that would go with it.
Yeah, and here's the thing. It ended way back on November 21st. I'm sad I didn't hear about this, but it did have 371 backers, a goal of $15,000. They ended with $32,686.
Nice.
They managed to actually hit a couple of their stretch goals. The one they didn't hit at $40,000, unfortunately, we would have used that to build a life-size TARDIS.
Aww.
But they did hit a couple stretch goals where they get expanded cooler space and actual beer glassware, bigger screen TVs, and it looks like some kind of console game bar.
Nice.
So, you know what? I would love to visit this place, but unfortunately I have no interest in going to Florida.
Oh, no Disneyland or Harry Potter World for you?
No, I'm black. I was told by my cousin there are certain places in Orlando or in Florida I just should not go.
I guess so, unfortunately.
Yeah. But, it's one of those things where I'd like to follow up with them and find out their success, because I've been following these small Kickstarters for like $20,000 where people are starting bars and geek pubs, and I think something like this would do gangbusters in Los Angeles.
Yeah, just like sort of franchise.
Yeah.
That'd be the next Kickstarter.
And something before Sal's iPod completely broke down on him, he brought up the Mega Man board game. Someone actually put together a Kickstarter out of Jasco Games of Lubbock, Texas, for a Mega Man board game. Now, this isn't necessarily licensed by Capcom. That would be part of the issue after the Kickstarter is done. But between figurines and board pieces, they have put together a board game based on the Blue Bomber himself. It's ending in 32 days on January 19th, has 1,805 backers, a goal of $70,000. They currently hit $225,953.
No surprise.
Yeah. Mega Man is one of those series that people just can't let go of. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it is one of those things that just comes back around every now and again.
Mm-hmm. Well, it seems interesting to me because, or things like Wreck-It Ralph, where because they're not really affiliated with, Nintendo or any other companies, they're kind of just it's just kind of his own thing to me. So it'd be easy to just kind of dish him out and be like, oh, you can be in this game, or we can make a new show.
Well, you mean that he's not affiliated with consoles, because he's a Capcom property, so he's obviously affiliated with games.
Right.
I want to make sure I had that correct.
Well, that's what I meant, was that since there's no direct, old school affiliation, it seems very easy to just dish them out wherever. It'll be interesting
to see if they can actually get the rights, though, because I can imagine a lot of people playing this. I was describing to the others, I'm not much into board games these days. The advent of all kinds of gaming technology, I get distracted very easily.
Of course.
But, they're very into board games, and this is right up their alley.
Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully if they raise that much money, I would hope that would turn some heads and, get them some licensing rights.
You would think so, but unfortunately, money is the final thing that talks, and it's similar to when we were talking about the Bubblegum Crisis Kickstarter. When somebody was trying to put together Blu-rays, it occurred to me that even though you have the Kickstarter and even though it's successful, there's nothing to say that the company itself can't say, well, we found out there's interest for this, why don't we just ignore these guys and put it out ourselves?
Right.
It's not the best reasoning, but I can't argue that it's possible, or it's impossible, I should say.
All right. Well, I guess another rule to add to the Kickstarter game is if you're going to be doing something that's not actually yours, try to get rights to it first.
Or at least get a signed paper that says if you're successful, we'll do it.
Right, or something.
Yeah. But from there, we'll move into the regular video game news. Konami has kind of pulled a sideways item here. Are you familiar with the game of Skullgirls?
I've heard of it. I haven't actually played it, though.
Okay. For those who don't know, it is a game that didn't have a disc release. It was put out on Xbox Live, PSN, and possibly the Wii networks. It was an original fighting game. It appears to be one of those where all the characters were hand-drawn, and they were animated, pixelated, and it's a bunch of girls of different stereotypes and original designs, battling it out. It is what it sounds like. Now, the thing is, Konami did this in junction with the company that made the game, which is, I believe it's called Lab Zero. The problem is that Lab Zero and Konami have had some kind of split, and Konami has filed to yank these games from the networks.
That's all.
It is rough. We discussed this a little bit because Konami's request by Sony has already been approved, so the game's going to disappear soon from PSN. We don't quite understand why this happened like this, because we would have thought that Konami would have wanted the game to keep making money. I mean, even if you're splitting, at the very least, let the game make money and argue about the share later. Don't just deny yourself revenue.
Right.
So I don't quite know why it's so unamicable, and why this seems like a divorce of Kim Kardashian and Chris Humphries. But they really seem angry at each other to the point where they don't want to make money yet.
That's really sad. I should probably definitely get that on PSN before it goes away.
It might be worth looking up. I don't have an interest myself, so I haven't looked to see if it's still online, but if it is, it's probably at the most $20 to get the game.
Hey, and if the designs are good enough, it's a good cosplay consideration.
Actually, I have seen a few cosplays and a few groups being arranged on East Coast conventions. I haven't seen it out here yet, but granted, I haven't exactly been looking for Skullgirls.
Right.
But it is a notable game. It actually has been featured in several fighting tournaments. So it must be a game of some merit.
Well, I wonder if this got it even more publicity, the fact that it's going to go away forever, and now all of a sudden it's valuable.
It could be, but I don't imagine they raise prices. That would just be a shot in the foot, considering all the stuff going on. Something else that poked its head out at me is, are you familiar with the Telltale Games company?
Telltale?
Yes.
No, I thought you said like Tales of for a second there.
Well, Telltale Games, they make episodic games based on existing licenses. They're the ones who made the Walking Dead games recently.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So you know those.
Yes.
Okay. They also did the Tales from the Borderlands game. Well, they got a new license. They're working hand-in-hand with HBO to put out a Telltale series of Game of Thrones.
Oh, okay, I'd play that.
Have you played the Walking Dead games? I haven't touched them.
They were pretty. I watched some friends play it, and it was pretty fun.
Okay. Well, that gives me hope because they're apparently working with they're even working with who was it here? Not Gearbox. Screw up. That makes me sound stupid. They're working with HBO based off the TV licensed property. So what that means is, unlike the Walking Dead games that happen kind of on the periphery of the main story, this one you have a great chance of running into primary characters. So the Game of Thrones game may actually intersect with the major stories going on.
Awesome. Well, with Walking Dead, you can kind of get away with having it be more on the side. But Game of Thrones, I don't know if it'd be worth playing if you couldn't be with all these main characters. I mean, they'll die anyway, but more come up anyway. But
well, no, you have a point, because of Walking Dead, there's an entire world out there. You know, there's all kinds of stories of people trying to survive the zombie apocalypse. I mean, Game of Thrones, unless you're involved in the skirmishes and wars for this, battle for dominance and thrones, I mean, what are you going to do? I farmed 8 turnips today, sir!
Unless you get to play, like, one of the ice golems in the north, and then that's, like, a whole nother battle.
I was afraid you were going to say one of the prostitutes.
Oh, no.
I'd hate to mine for that gold. Oof.
I wouldn't be surprised if there was a character you could play or something.
As long as
This
there's...
is Game of Thrones we're talking about.
I know, I get enough full frontal out of that.
Oh, dear.
Let me see. Have you played any of the Alien games?
I have not, no.
Okay, I wish Sal was still here because he mentioned the board game for this. But there's concept art that's been released for the next Alien game. It's for Alien Isolation. It shows a woman appears to be in a spacesuit and the, the silhouette of an alien on the helmet. That might not be a big deal, except they've been alluding to a character that may appear in the games, and they think this may be the one that's been rumored as Ripley's daughter. They think they may have created some continuity, so the character Sigourney Weaver had played throughout the movies, had a daughter, and she may be the star of the next game.
Okay, I'm not terribly familiar, unfortunately.
It's okay. Well, I keep forgetting how young you are compared to me, so this may have been before your time. In the 80s and early 90s, the Alien series was a huge deal to people, or at least young kids, because it was the perfect combination of space opera and general horror. You're dealing with creatures that will gestate their young inside the chest of people. And then they will, after a few days, it will burst out of their sternum and crawl around the ground and quickly grow into this thing that looks like a giant 2-legged cockroach with acid for blood. So you can imagine how a bunch of kids, especially me during my teenage years, who saw that and just went, I am going to check the bathroom like every time I sit down, man.
Nightmares for sure.
Yeah, I remember waking up a couple times.
Oh dear. Well, and that's what they had the Aliens vs. Predator movie recently.
Yeah, the second one was much better than the first, but still a very hard thing to sit through.
That's unfortunately all I really know about the whole universe.
It's okay. How about Black Friday? Did you shop at all on Black Friday?
Shockingly, I did a Joanne's run and took advantage of all those deals for future cosplays.
Okay, then this will be right up your alley because this is funny. Do you know Cards Against Humanity?
Yes, I heard of that.
Yeah, it's basically an adult version of the Apples to Apples card game. Mm-hmm. They generally sell their sets for $25, right?
Yeah.
Okay, here's the thing. On Black Friday, they ran a special sale. They were selling Cards Against Humanity for $30.
Okay.
They raised their prices. They raised the prices by $5. They even put it on the website. Was $25 / now $30. Don't miss on this once in a lifetime sale. The hilarious part is they released their sales during the period of Black Friday. It's the largest they've been since they released the 4th expansion.
You're kidding me.
I'm not. People actually paid the extra money. It's like they waited, said, oh, charge me. There it is!
I wonder if they actually thought they would get more money, or if they're just putting that as a joke to make fun of, like, Black Friday.
No, they actually got the sales. I don't know if they actually expected people to buy more. I'm not sure they cared because the sales stay in, like, even at bad times, you know, they're making somewhere around $500,000 to $1 million in sales, which is pretty good for a card game. You know, your overhead is small. But at the same time, you know, the fact that it spiked during a $5 increase, I don't know if that's... I can't tell if that's the brilliance of planning or if that is the sheepishness of, you know, consumers.
I would hope not the consumers, but you know that's probably what it is.
It was probably part of it. They saw sale and said, ooh, this is going to save. Click.
Or something.
Oh, well.
Well, why you're buying a bunch of other stuff, and it's like, oh, wait, I need to get a new party game for over the holiday season. Oh, let's get this.
Yeah. Well, I still don't know if they feel pride in that or not, but hey, you know, it worked for them. Have you heard a rumor about unlocking Xbox 360 backwards compatibility in Xbox Ones?
You can do that?
Here's the thing. There was a graphic that was released by somebody. I don't know who. The instructions say to go to the Xbox One system menu, press LBRB LTRT in quick order. Select the developer console, click the Enable Dev Kit box, change the sandbox ID to freezone.reboot, select Reset Home Console, and it says you do that, and you'll be able to play 360 games on your Xbox One. Thing is, several people have tested it. Don't do it. It turns out what that does is it causes your Xbox One to constantly reset itself. It bricks your console.
Oh no!
Somebody
could it even handle like the new process? Like, is it even capable of doing a 360?
I don't think so because from what I understand, the CPU and chipset are different from what's in the 360, and it just causes an infinite boot cycle. This is somebody's bad idea of a joke.
Oh.
So the hard part is I would like to release the graphic just so people know what I'm talking about, but at the same time, I'm afraid to put this on the website and have people test it.
Yeah, no. They can just listen to the podcast.
Speaking of which, Screw Attack has released their finalists for the shitty-ass games of the year for Sony and Nintendo. Probably for Microsoft, too, by now. I'll just post links. I don't think I should really go into somebody else's article like that. And you spoke earlier of the Tales of games. You thought I was mentioning that?
Yeah.
Did you know there's going to be another one?
Uh-huh.
What's it called?
I don't remember. I just know a lot of my friends have been talking about it for a while.
Okay, I thought I'd see how well you knew. It's called Tales of Zestiria.
Okay.
Tales of, I think it was Xillia, came out late last year.
I think it was more like 2 years ago.
Okay, I don't own a PlayStation, so I do not know. But this is scheduled for release in 2015 on the PS3 and PS4. They're touting it as a release for the 25th anniversary of the Tales series. Some people have noted that it's a little bit late for that, but you know they really don't want them to delay it by 5 years and wait for the 30th.
Right.
Or the 25th. I'm sorry. This is supposed to be the 20th anniversary game.
Instead of the 25th.
Yeah.
Well, it's been around. Unfortunately, all my friends that love the Tales of games, it's been a while you have to wait such a long time just to get those games available in America.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's not as spontaneous as something like Zelda or Final Fantasy, and yet there's like this whole hidden fan base that wants these games, and they're just taking their time releasing them for some reason.
I have been curious about Xillia. I heard fantastic things about it. I just don't own anything it can be played on. I
didn't actually beat Xillia yet. it didn't have the same feeling as a lot of the earlier games.
Yeah,
so
well, yeah.
I was kind of taking my time playing it, and I don't know. One day I know I'm going to get through it just because I have lots of friends that want to cosplay it, and I can't bring myself to cosplay a video game unless they played it. But...
Okay. Speaking of video games, have you ever played one of the Sword Art Online games?
I never actually played Sword Art Online. I've seen the anime, though.
Okay, the next Sword Art Online game is coming out for the PS Vita in Japan. It's called
Okay.
Sword Art Online Hollow Fragment. It involves a brand new character, what is her name? Philia, but it also has the main characters of Kirito and Asuna prominent in the game. From what I can tell, it's based on their original time in the Sword Art Online game, the first one where everyone was locked in and you died if you died in the game.
Right.
It looks like they've added an extra tale to that part of the canon. So this will happen early on. There's no elves, no flying, no magic.
Just lots of people going against each other.
Yep. You know, I think I should revisit that at some point because I had a discussion of what would happen if you existed in this game, and we kind of had fun with the debate, but that was before we had a regular show, so I kind of want to revisit that at some point.
Mm-hmm. Well, I remember when the anime first came out, that was kind of the huge thing that people were talking about. It's like, is this even realistic, or no? Like, that's totally what happened, and then why, or
Well, that's the reason why I kind of fear that, because the technology is going to occur sooner or later, but the problem is it's going to be run by people, and people can be corrupted or dicks. So.
Or just ignorant.
Yeah, so I worry about stuff like that. Who knows? Who's going to pour coffee on the mainframe and suddenly my brain is trapped in the computer?
No.
You never know with stuff like this. And also on games, Mighty Number 9's come up a couple times in conversation. It's supposed to be the spiritual successor to Mega Man that was done by the original story, I think, director of the game.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a bit of a controversy that's suddenly surrounding it. A lady named Dina Abo Karam is a community manager for Concept, the people making the game. Unfortunately, on their website, she posted this rant that was supposed to be a question of professionalism, or it was supposed to be summarizing events. The problem is that she went on a feminist rant wondering why the main character of this game can't be a girl. Then she started talking about why there's so few girls in video games, and
no.
it turned into one of those, and that's really questionable when this is your community manager. This is supposed to be the person that's out front to your gamers saying, this is what we're doing.
Right. Well, and if you can't pick your fights, especially when you're going to bring up feminism, it usually doesn't end very well.
Yeah, it is one of those things where I understand the problems, and I understand, there aren't enough prominent females in games. I think that's true. The problem is, though, is your fan base. I mean, your fan base are primarily males when it comes to video games.
Yep.
So they're going to do something that appeals to them. There's, at least as far as Western games anyway, there's going to be strong male characters, often a damsel in distress of some sort. Maybe she gets a sword later, but usually it does involve males rescuing females. And
typically.
That's a combination of tradition, genealogy, and just the standards of the industry, unfortunately.
Mm.
So,
well, even if you try to have a female protagonist,
mm-hmm.
if you try at all to say, oh, we're gonna try and make there we're gonna equality and gender rights, and no one's gonna, it's just gonna cause a huge flame and probably not succeed.
Yeah, it's you can't place a rant like that when you're trying to sell a project to other people. I mean, unfortunately, they did get I think they did get 4 million in total donations via Kickstarter and PayPal combined, but at the same time, you want more people to buy the game. 4 million represents a large amount of sales, but it's still not the total amount you could get by game sales.
Right.
So, you don't want to piss off those people that haven't backed the project yet.
Nope.
Also in the vein of Mighty Number 9, the character in the game, Beck, is going to be available as a skin in Yaiba Ninja Gaiden Z.
What?
Have you played any of the Ninja Gaiden games in the latest generation of systems?
I have not, no.
Okay, they're very bloody affairs. Apparently, in one of the Ninja Gaiden games, the main character, Ryu Hayabusa, who's been in Dead or Alive and a couple other items, he destroyed a rival ninja named Yaiba. Well, somebody's brought him back to life and turned him into a cyborg. He wants to find Ryu Hayabusa and kill him. Before he can do that, there's a horde of zombies standing in his way. So that's the concept of the game. Apparently, as an extra skin, though, you can put on the skin of the character from Mighty Number 9 and play through Ninja Gaiden Z.
All right, then.
This sounds completely hilarious to me. I'd like to see what this looks like.
Oh, there's going to be videos on YouTube.
Hopefully soon, but they only just announced the news like late last week, so we'll have to wait and see where that comes from. From there, we'll move into Marvel Media News, and since I haven't had a chance to explain it to you, it's where we talk about TV and movie projects for Marvel Comics properties. The biggest piece of news that came out last week was that Bryan Singer is going to direct X-Men Apocalypse.
Oh, yeah, I did read that.
You did read how the Apocalypse has been announced for the 2016 X-Men film?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, Bryan Singer, the guy who's made some of the better movies in the X-Men lineup, is going to do the Apocalypse film, and it's also going to be set in the 70s.
Ooh, so we're moving up a decade.
Yeah, it's going to move along the same timeline as First Class, which is kind of curious because another article that came out from comicbookmovie.com said that plot details say that the past and future cast may be set to reunite. So this may be another time travel story.
Okay.
Which, that falls in line with X-Men. They time travel about as often as someone winds a watch.
Well, if it's not time travel, it's at least a parallel universe of some kind.
Yeah. Well, Apocalypse is also an enemy that's done some time traveling himself.
Mm-hmm.
Think of him as the ultimate Darwinist. He believes that only the strongest should survive, so he believes that mutants are going to survive over humans, but he'd rather see mutants fighting amongst each other, and only the absolute strongest are the ones allowed to live.
Right.
So there was a short miniseries where it was a what if he took over the world, and there was a lot of skulls on the ground, is the best way to put it.
Oh, dear.
So
hey, make a good movie, though.
It sounds like it, although I'm curious because if you have an Apocalypse movie, that generally means that Cable's going to be involved somewhere. Do you know that character?
Yeah.
Yeah, I still worry about involving him in these movies because his origin is so complicated. You basically need a movie just to tell his story. Although I'm hoping if they involve him, that means there's going to be some time travel mojo and they'll finally bring back James Marsden to be Cyclops again.
Oh, they'd have to. This is the only way they can redeem themselves from the third movie.
Oh, I know. I thought his Cyclops was great. I just wish they didn't write him in every movie so he was a jerk that was either captured or brainwashed every damn time.
Yeah.
When you have the power to blink and make a mountain disappear, it shouldn't be that easy to grab you.
I'm just sad that he has such a bad rap to a lot of my friends, and it's just because he just hasn't been depicted very well, which is really sad because he's been around for a very long time.
Oh, I know. As a kid, I hated him. I mean, it just doesn't look that special when you got the guy with the metal claws and the guy with the skin and the guy who looks like a blue ape, and here's this guy with eye blast. It just doesn't match up to the rest of the X-Men who are much more splashy on the page. But as I've gotten older, I've come to appreciate how both smart he is and how damn powerful that eye blast is.
Oh, yeah. Well, it better be if that's his mutant power.
He's not even as flashy as Havoc, but what can you say?
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of the X-Men, Simon Kinberg has been hired by Fox Movies to help build an X-Men and Fantastic Four movie franchises. They're hoping to build something, according to Mark Miller, similar to Marvel by creating a combined universe for the X-Men and Fantastic Four properties that Fox has the movie rights to.
Okay, so are they going to recast Fantastic Four?
They've actually already set a date for the reboot in 2015. They casted one of the actors from Chronicle to play Johnny Storm already, supposedly, anyway. But we've been asking the question about what kind of reboot this is, because this would be the first time in our knowledge Johnny Storm has been black.
Huh.
It's a curiosity. We don't have any issue with it, but as we discussed among the regular members of the podcast, there's going to be some weird pushback by those people who just can't get it around their heads that these characters can be different races. Right,
but then you're going to have the fight about, well, we might as well have people of color because it's about time.
Yeah. There's always a ridiculous argument that you should never have that always occurs when you change a character's race.
Mm-hmm. Which is very unfortunate.
Yes.
In my opinion.
Oh, it is. And also in Marvel Media News, I found a blog for unidentifiedspoon.tumblr.com. She's an artist who came up with a line of gowns based on Marvel movie characters.
Ooh.
I'll actually send you the link so you can take a look at this while I'm talking and vamping. The basic story is that she took the characters of Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Black Widow, Hawkeye, and the Hulk and made evening gowns based on their appearance. Then she took it a step further and did gowns based on Loki, the Enchantress, the Winter Soldier, and Pyro. And I admit I have no reason to wear any of these, but
Why not?
they're actually very fetching designs, though. I can see a lot of ladies wearing these because they're not just character appropriate. These are actual elegant designs.
Yeah, ooh, I really like Loki.
It is a really nice work, and I like the pyro dress. It's a nice idea for a character who controls fire.
Yeah, this is really cool.
The only one I have a little bit of misgivings about is the Hulk on the second page full of Avengers gowns, but that could be fixed really easily by changing that olive green closer to a jade.
But just the color selection wasn't your fan?
It's a little drab for an evening gown. When I think evening gowns, I understand there's blacks in there, but I'm used to sharp colors. And the olive she picked isn't exactly what I consider sharp, but that's my personal opinion.
I think it would just depend on like the theme of the whatever event you're going to, and also the season of the year as well. Because a lot of gowns you wouldn't wear during certain seasonals for different colors or assigned to different seasons.
Oh, true. It's like I wouldn't wear the Loki one to or I wouldn't have someone wear the Loki one to like a political function. But
Oh, no.
I do think that the Thor, the Captain America, and the Black Widow dresses, those are pretty general use. Looking at them, those would fit in a lot of
I wouldn't be
circumstances.
surprised if someone's like making these right now after seeing these designs.
Hey, if they did, they should be worth hundreds of dollars, and this lady should get like at least half of it because it is amazing
yeah.
work. Also, in Marvel media news, S.H.I.E.L.D. had its mid-season break about a week ago, actually.
Yeah.
Things are not going terribly well because the mid-season break slipped to a new low for the series at 6.1 million viewers and a 2.1 rating. That's down 12% opposite another episode or a new episode of NCIS at the same time. I don't know why people hate this series as much as they do. I mean, I thought it was pretty well explained going in. These are regular humans dealing with extraordinary circumstances.
Right. Well, that's kind of how they advertised it.
It is how they advertise it, but I don't think it's what a lot of people heard. A lot of people are complaining that there isn't enough superheroes, or where are the Avengers? It's not their story.
Right. This is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, and personally, I think that's one of the more compelling stories, is if you have all these weird circumstances, technologies, and superhumans popping up, how do the regular people cope?
Right.
It's like the Man of Steel movie. Everyone's glad to see Superman, even though 5,000 people died in Metropolis.
Right.
And I think half of that when he was punching Zod.
Humans and the Earthlings some kind of credit.
Yeah. There has to be a regular life in there. Otherwise, why doesn't everybody fly and shoot things from their eyes?
Right.
So, we didn't get it either. We came to a consensus. We like the show. We think it's doing pretty well for what it's supposed to be.
I'm actually really surprised because everyone I've talked to really, at least my close group of friends, we seem to enjoy it a lot. So it makes me sad that a lot of people don't like it.
Well, you know how the internet is. You hear the negative much more than you hear the positive.
And, yeah.
Let's see. Also in Marvel Media News, the international trailer was released for Amazing Spider-Man 2. It has almost all new footage and some kind of spoilerish content to it. So we'll post a link to that and let people watch it as they please. And Marvel has announced a new project. Well, actually, I'll hold off on that in comic news. I don't quite know why that's there. But the other thing that's been announced as far as Amazing Spider-Man movies is that they're doing spin-offs. There's actually a movie being planned around the Sinister Six, which is generally six of Spider-Man's worst enemies teamed up to usually kill Spider-Man, but sometimes have another goal. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, we're talking about a movie that supposedly would star Jamie Foxx as Electro, Paul Giamatti as Rhino again, plus in the trailers for The Amazing Spider-Man 2, we've seen that they have the gear for Dr. Octopus and the Vulture ready for actors. Mm-hmm. So they're planning a movie based around the Sinister Six. They've also announced that they're working on a solo Venom project.
Okay. Well, good. Venom should probably be by himself anyway.
Well, it is one of those things that's kind of a mixed bag, though, because you know that half the reason they announce this is because they have to come up with regular Spider-Man movies so that they can keep the rights to those movies.
Yep. They're going to hold on to this for as long as they can.
Oh, it's making them money. I don't see why they'd let go. In DC media news, Paul Dini, who's a notable writer for DC cartoon series like The Brave and the Bold, he and Alan Burnett, who worked on the Green Lantern First Flight animated film, they were hired by Warner Bros. To write a screenplay for a live-action version of Batman Beyond.
I want that so bad.
Well, the problem is they did it a while ago. He was on Fat Man on Batman, the Kevin Smith podcast about Batman-related properties. And they revealed that they were hired to work on it, but the project, as well as a movie based on Ra's al Ghul, were both scrapped. They were just never made.
Ugh.
They never got off the ground. And I wish there was a better explanation why, because I thought Batman Beyond was the best story to come out of that universe.
That is Batman Beyond is my favorite of all Batmans.
Yeah,
I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard that they were even talking about doing, when they were talking about doing Batman Beyond, that's kind of what spurred on doing Batman Begins. Like, they kind of just, they were talking about doing Batman Beyond, and then it kind of just flipped into opposite timeline and just done the beginning of Batman instead.
That's possible because it is a similar storyline in that you have a very young and immature person learning to pick up the mantle, except that, that means that they would have had to completely bastardize the script Dini made and then let Christopher Nolan rewrite half of it. But the more you talk about it, the more that makes sense, because out of the Nolan movies, I enjoyed Batman Begins. I really didn't like his subsequent movies. So if he didn't have that successful framework to work with and he started writing his own stuff, that might explain why I really didn't like those films.
If it really was based on Batman Beyond.
Well, not Batman Beyond so much as the script originally made by Paul Dini, just like you said, some circumstances were flipped. That means they had good writing to work with to begin with, and then he took credit, started writing more stuff, and that might be why I have such a disconnect between the three films.
That would do it, yeah. Ugh, I want a Batman Beyond movie so bad.
I think the technology's all there. Why they haven't done is beyond me. You wouldn't even need to do that whole face-hugging spandex thing they did in the cartoon. You could just have like this Optimus Prime style mask, and I'd be sold.
Anything.
Yeah.
I even love the villains a lot. Like, one day I know I'm going to cosplay Ink. I'm just a huge fan of just the Joker gangs in general. Because that's what would... I just love how they imagined a world after these Batman villains came along.
Yeah, I'd like to see you as Ink, too. I think you've definitely got the figure and the attitude for it, but you're right. Batman Beyond has some of the most original style of villains that have come out in years, and I think you can even count the comic books across that. I know that the latest Batman villain, Professor Pig, does not impress me.
Yeah.
Also in DC media news, Batman vs. Superman starts filming in February, and Amy Adams talked a little bit about Wonder Woman being cast. If you hadn't heard, last week they announced that Gal Gadot from the Fast and the Furious movies has been cast as Wonder Woman. She's an Israeli actress, really pretty lady, although some people have said she's not busty enough to play Wonder Woman. To that I say, fuck you fanboys. But, when they asked, somebody at Screen Rant asked Amy Adams about the casting, here's her response, and I think it's hilarious. Quote, "Oh, did they announce Wonder Woman? I didn't even know. See, clearly I'm not the person to talk to. Now I know. But that's awesome. I hope I get a scene with her. I think we start in February," unquote. She was really sweet about saying, "I know absolutely dick about that."
Right. It's like, oh wow, thanks for asking me, even though I have nothing to do with it.
Yeah. I mean, she even went on to say, quote, "I am interested in a Lois Superman Wonder Woman, or am I interested in a Lois Superman Wonder Woman love triangle? I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I hope that I can be involved with a woman on screen where we're not in a love triangle. That would be fun. Maybe where we team up together and work as teammates instead of adversaries," unquote.
Wouldn't that be nice?
I've heard that she is like one of the sweetest person in the world, but that is just such a lollipops and candy canes response to that particular question of whether or not there'd be a love triangle.
Good for her.
It's just, do we really have to do that? Can't we just be gal pals?
Well, and especially with Wonder Woman, I don't know.
Yeah, something tells me you don't want to tug on her hair.
No.
And something Sal imparted to me is that Jason Momoa is in talks. He's in talks to join the Batman Superman movie.
Okay. Who do we have a name attached on? Who would he be?
That's the question. Is that nobody has said what he might be asked to do. The early speculation is that maybe he'll be cast as Doomsday, which is a big-time Superman villain who was responsible for his death back in the 90s. Or he could be the Martian Manhunter.
Ooh, that would be interesting.
Yeah, for those that are drawing a big blank, Jason Momoa he played Conan in the most recent movie. He also played Khal Drogo in the first season of Game of Thrones. We're talking big, muscular, and I don't want to say caveman-like, but definitely one of those guys that makes regular people like me pee themselves a little bit when he walks by.
Was he also in Stargate?
I don't believe so.
Or
but
I might be speaking of someone else.
I think he's younger than that. I don't know.
Stargate Atlantis, I think.
I watched like 2 episodes of that. I have no idea. But he is... I do think he's a better actor than people give him credit for, but I just don't think they can get past his exterior that looks like he could eat a deer, like, raw. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't know. If I'm thinking of the right guy, he's pretty muscular.
Did you watch Game of Thrones?
Oh, yeah.
Remember the guy that Daenerys Targaryen forcefully married?
Okay, yeah, so I am thinking of the right guy. Okay.
That's him, yeah. Hopefully he won't be asked to play that role with Supergirl.
Ooh, that might contrast weird.
That might cause some arguments in the fanboys.
I guess that would depend on who would play Supergirl.
We'll move on to general media news. Something I found that made me laugh. You know, this is why I shouldn't have downtime between podcasts, because I find interesting things on the internet. Somebody at College Humor created 15 Pokemon sex moves.
I don't even want to know. We can move on.
Well, some of this is actually pretty funny, like the Eevee, expose your partner to different objects and see how it evolves the experience.
Oh, dear.
The Haunter, use your tongue again, but this time so well that it actually paralyzes your partner. The Metapod, get hard and tackle your partner. The Missing No, have a one-night stand with someone filled to the brim with STDs.
Oh, man.
The Magikarp, flop around ineffectively. The Gyarados, after flopping around for a while, shock your partner by growing a ton and then hyper-beaming them. The Pokedex, look online and realize you're not as good at this as you thought you were. It's crude, but I gotta admit, it's pretty clever all in all. I will post a link to that.
If you gave him enough time, I'm sure he could come up with something for all the Pokemon.
Yeah, you know, the joke of gotta catch 'em all just comes right to mind, but you know.
You gotta have them all.
Oh! I'm gonna write a letter. Also in general media news, Disney has started a new movie which may be a live action. Actually, I believe it is, because it's going to be a Disney Channel original. It's going to focus on the offspring of some of their greatest villains. It's called Descendants.
Ooh.
Are you familiar? Oh, so you're not familiar, I take it.
I'm not.
Okay, at the latest D23 Expo, the storyline is in a present-day idyllic kingdom. The benevolent teenage son of the kingdom's king and queen, who happen to be Beast and Belle from Beauty and the Beast, is poised to take the throne, and his first proclamation is to offer a chance of redemption to the offspring of some of the worst villains that have been. Worst villains, sidekicks, and evil stepmothers have been sent to an island, namely the children of Cruella de Vil, Maleficent, the evil queen from Snow White, and Jafar. Their names are Carlos, Mal, Evie, and Jay, respectively. And they're allowed to attend prep school next to the offspring of other Disney heroes like the Fairy Godmother, Sleeping Beauty, Rapunzel, and Mulan. So the basic story is, do these kids follow in their parents' footsteps, or do they forge their own identities? Go ahead.
I would definitely. That sounds really interesting to me. Especially if this is going to be live action, I would think I want it to be live action versus an animated show.
I tend to prefer animated because I've watched a lot of the teen dramas on Disney with my daughter, and I think they're too hammy as far as acting. But at the same time, I'm not much into Disney lore. This is an interesting enough idea. I'd like to see it, though.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's almost like Once Upon a Time is getting pretty big. Now let's do something for, like, younger kids.
That's true.
Let's start a new generation, get some original characters in there.
You could be absolutely right. Speaking of a new generation, did you watch Rise of the Planet of the Apes when it came out a couple years ago?
Yep.
What'd you think?
I loved it. I thought it was really good.
Okay, so you see another one?
They're going to make another one?
Welcome to Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. They've released teaser posters as of the 12th of this month.
Oh my goodness.
The storyline is that Darwin and his hyper-intelligent apes are coming down from the trees because they found out that humanity has been decimated by the virus from the end of the first movie.
Right.
So the war for dominance of the planet is about to begin.
Alright, so we actually get to see the... Okay.
Well, James Franco is not in the movie.
Oh, well, that, to me, defeats the whole purpose.
Well, he may have been one of the first people taken out by the virus, but, you gotta admit, this story is about the apes more than it is James Franco.
I guess, but I know he's the reason, I know from my sisters especially, when we all went to see it, he was the reason we all went to see it.
Well, there has been an evolution in the story, because all 4 teasers are close-ups, as you can imagine, close-ups of the faces of different apes, but all of them are wearing war paint, both red and white.
Huh.
So they're getting smarter, and they're coming for their bananas. The idea of Rise of the Planet of the Apes does freak me out a bit because it occurred to me that, most of our police force, the people that be front lines to deal with this, they carry small arms, and large gorillas, they would walk through that.
Oh yeah, that would be really scary for sure.
Yeah, they'd take off your gun arm and beat you with it.
I'm
Literally.
interested to see how brutal this movie gets, if it's going to be something more like the Superman movie, or if we're talking,
Oh, I don't know. After the fight scene at the end of the first one, I was horrified by the concept just by that.
Yeah.
And this one's going to involve more of it, obviously. But pushing forward, the Wachowskis are making a new sci-fi movie.
Really?
Yeah, the people responsible for the Matrix movie and lesser-known Speed Racer.
Speed Racer, yeah.
Yeah, they've cast Mila Kunis and Channing Tatum in a new movie called Jupiter Ascending.
Oh yeah, I've seen trailers for that.
Yeah, that's the Wachowskis. I almost said the Wachowski brothers, but I keep forgetting one of them's not a brother anymore.
Oh. They added a new guy?
No, one of the brothers changed sexes.
Oh, that's...
Well, I
should have known that.
Yeah, during high school is when, like, well, not high school. I think during my college years was when the Matrix movie came out, and the Wachowski brothers were a big name around the nerd circles, and I keep wanting to say the Wachowski brothers when they're not brothers anymore. Right. It's like the Wachowski siblings.
And that just doesn't have a ring to it.
No, it doesn't. And, now, I gotta ask, because this came up this week, do you watch Once Upon a Time?
Yes.
Okay, can you explain to me why IO9 is so pissed off that says, Once Upon a Time says, fuck it, let's just reboot everything again? What the hell is that about?
Well, I don't want to get too much into it, but basically, the way they have the storyline set up, they've basically threatened to basically start everything off the same exact way it originally started. They're basically resetting all the characters. Now,
has this happened before? Because they made it sound like this would be like the second or third reboot in the series.
This would have been the third one. I actually just finished watching the end of the most recent episode, and they're not actually going to reboot it. But so they've already done it once. Where they basically reset all the characters, and this time they were almost doing it again. This time they kind of just sent all the characters off back to their own worlds.
Oh, okay.
Spoiler alert, sorry.
It's okay.
But, yeah, like, it was pretty upsetting. I got in a heated discussion with some other people earlier about, if they actually did reboot everything again, because it's almost like they're starting to run out of ideas.
Yeah, that does.
And they're trying to get themselves in a position where, okay, let's get some fresh material in there and keep, painting themselves into a corner. Yeah,
it's like the New 52 DC reboot from a couple of years ago. We argued it's probably one of the weakest story devices ever because you could just write new stories.
Right.
I understand that with the reboot they're unfettered by previous history, but at the same time, that previous history makes the characters.
Right, and yeah, I don't know, they're doing some really interesting things with these characters, especially with the recent Neverland story. And I don't know, I've always loved what they've been doing with like Peter Pan and the new characters. But I don't know, I don't want to get too spoilery, but
okay. Well,
the last episode was kind of upsetting to me.
That's fine, that's more than I knew before. BuzzFeed also posted the 30 very best pieces of fan art of 2013, and I'm going to post a link to this because I flipped through it. There's some awesome fan art out there that needs to be appreciated. Someone made a mashup of Akira and Pac-Man, which is kind of hilarious.
Okay.
There was also somebody who did ukiyo-e style pictures of video game characters, including like Star Fox and Pokemon and samurai style Mario trying to beat up on a giant gibbon Donkey Kong. One of the most impressive ones was Leonardo from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with a broken sword, looking defeated, and the looks like the mass of his brothers wrapped around his arms, like he's the last one standing. There's some.
Oh, that'd be so sad. I don't want to see that one.
There's some awesome art here. You'd love the Jedi princesses. Someone took Disney princesses and mashed them up with Star Wars Jedi and Sith.
Oh, I did see that one. Some of them I felt were kind of stretching a little bit. But
well, that's kind of the idea, though.
I guess so. I don't know. I thought like Rapunzel's light up hair as the lightsaber. I thought was really cool.
I kind of like Sleeping Beauty and Carbonite.
Oh yeah, that one was pretty cool too.
But this is awesome fan art, and I think it should be appreciated. So I'll post a link to it. Probably one of the biggest pieces of news from last week was that the trailer for the new Godzilla film was released.
Oh my gosh!
Did you watch it?
So good, yeah.
I mean, it was interesting to look at, and I would have liked to see a full frontal well, not full frontal, that's dirty. I'd like to have seen an actual view of Godzilla. You know, the peak was enough. My question is, if the city's destroyed, and you have this giant monster that looks to be about 15 stories tall rampaging, why in the hell do you only parachute in one squad that doesn't have any heavy weapons to deal with it? Could anyone explain this to me?
Well, we're gonna have to watch the movie, I guess.
Oh, that's a cop-out answer. But also came out this week was that Brian Bendis. He wrote he's the guy who did the, not reboots, but reimaginations of X-Men and Avengers that have done very well for Marvel Comics. Mm-hmm. One of his previous properties prior to working for Marvel, called Fire from 1993, is being made into a movie. Writer Jesse Wigoto, who worked on Disney's Tron sequel, is apparently closed a deal to adapt the comic book for movies. Fire's about a college student who's recorded by the CIA, only to find out he's being trained for a program that makes expendable spies.
Expendable?
Yeah, in other words, they're out there for one mission and there's no exit plan. You know, they fulfill their mission and then they can go die.
That's so sad. So does one of them escape, or what? What's the premise on this?
I don't know. I've not heard of Fire myself, but as a premise, I'd like the idea. You know, not necessarily like the idea of expendable spies, but I do believe that people are dirtbaggish enough to actually do this to other humans, you know? Mm-hmm. So I'm interested to know more. I'd like to make a final decision. Mm-hmm. How many Disney movies do you watch?
Like, are we talking live action, or
in general,
like animation, or
more animation? Have you seen Frozen?
Yes.
Okay. Did you spot the Easter eggs in it?
Besides like Rapunzel, or
that was one of them. During the scene where people are gathering for the wedding, if you look in the lower, I believe, left-hand corner, you can see what appears to be the back of Rapunzel and Flynn Rider walking into the wedding. Mm-hmm. Did you also notice that Wreck-It Ralph concept had a cameo in it?
No, I missed that one.
There's a character in Frozen named Anna. She has a love for chocolates, and she goes to a table that appears to be full of cakes and candies. The plate nearest to her on the table on the right, if you take a good close look, it's a mound of chocolate that appears to be smothered in all kinds of candies. It's in the vein of Sugar Rush.
Huh.
There was also a Mickey plush doll that was hidden in the movie, too.
Oh, wasn't, like, Elsa holding that in the beginning?
No, she wasn't holding it. It was actually on a shelf hidden behind a couple objects. It's a plush that's in the shelves in Wandering Oaken's Trading Post and Sauna.
Huh. Oh, in the sauna. Okay, huh.
Yeah. So there's a few Easter eggs that people have already started to pick out from the film. I find it interesting. I mean, there's even a painting that was developed during Tangled that made its way into the movie. It was a variation on The Swing by Jean-René Fragonard, and it was in the Tangled film. They just added it to Frozen.
Interesting. I'll have to look for that one.
Yeah, that's stuff for people to look for again.
Yeah.
Are you a fan of Star Trek?
Yes.
The Next Generation?
Yes. That was my first Star Trek that I saw as a kid.
Okay, how much of the series did you see? Did you see the first, couple seasons?
I saw more of the end. I need to rewatch Next Gen, because
Okay.
I really only remember how it ends.
Okay, do you know that when they started, they weren't wearing those wool uniforms they use in the majority of the series? They were wearing spandex?
They were? Oh, no.
Yeah, spandex one pieces. There was a reason why they disappeared in the third season. Now, first of all, there was the idea that only Denise Crosby made any of these things look good. But according to costume designer Bob Blackman, he had an interview with BBC that was uncovered by Fast Company Design, and he said, quote, "Spandex retains odor. So there's a certain part where if you're wearing them for a long period of time, you really can't clean all of the smell out, and it becomes a little bit annoying. Also, it retains the odor of the dry cleaning fluid. It is, on a day-to-day basis, unpleasant," unquote. So, unfortunately, that means for 3 seasons, these guys were trying to work together in close quarters, and they smell like a combination of cleanser and crotch rot.
Oh, no. And they're filming for 10 hours straight in these things.
Well, not only that, the spandex was so tight on these people they were single-piece bodysuits. It wasn't like shirt and pants. They were unitards, and they were so tight that the cast members were having recurrent back problems.
Oh.
So by the third season, they replaced them with these looser wool uniforms that most people know today. You know, whenever you see Picard or Riker tugging on the bottom of their jackets, they weren't able to do that originally.
Yeah, that's what happens when you don't think through your costume designs, for sure.
I'm sure they thought all these people would look awesome and ripped in spandex, and they did look relatively physically fit, but, after a while, that rides. And now we found out it smells.
Yeah, well, I kind of could have told you that spandex starts to smell. That I learned that one the hard way as well.
No offense, but I'm too married to ask you to sniff your spandex.
Yeah, the things you learn when you cosplay.
Yeah, really. Are you a fan of Dwayne Johnson at all?
Not really.
Okay. Well, this isn't of your interest. The movie he arguably hit it big in back when he was still wrestling was The Rundown with Sean William Scott.
Okay.
Peter Berg is developing a sequel for The Rundown. And apparently Dwayne Johnson's already on board to reprise his role.
So is this, like, just beyond my... I might be too young for this type of thing?
No, it would have been around the right period. It's a movie where he's not a mercenary per se. He's more of an exfiltration specialist. He's the guy you send into third world hellholes to find somebody and bring him back, willing or not.
Oh, okay.
And I guess if several people have asked Peter Berg about the original movie and whether or not he'd be interested in doing a sequel, he said, quote, or he was asked if he was sick of people asking him about a sequel. His quote was, "No, never. And we just met with writers, so we're trying to do it. I really want to do it. I've talked to Dwayne. I have an actor in mind that I can't say that I want to work with Dwayne on it, and we want to do it. Yeah, we're meeting with writers now," unquote.
That has to get people excited then.
Well, the first movie was kind of an oddity because it wasn't just Dwayne Johnson. It was Sean William Scott, who was pretty big at the time of the movie came out, and the villain was Christopher Walken. And I'm sorry, Christopher Walken can completely suck during a role, but he'll still bring people to see it. It's true. I'm totally sick of you getting in my town and messing up my stuff. That was awful.
Oh, man. Christopher Walken.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the Elfstones of Shannara?
Oh, that... I want to say yes, but nothing's coming to mind.
Well, it's a series of books written by Terry Brooks. It's supposed to be thousands of years in the future when humanity's kind of experiencing a second coming. There's magic, and there's a highborn family called the Shannarans, who the series of books is about.
Okay, yeah, if it's Terry Brooks, it's probably why I've heard of it.
Yeah,
but I haven't actually gotten into it.
Okay, yeah, short stories. It's sword and sorcery in the far-flung future.
Okay.
Well, MTV is working on developing a TV series based on those books.
Huh. Terry Brooks is going to be a big name to make a series off of.
Well, not only that, they've actually hired Jon Favreau, who directed the original Iron Man film, to work on it.
Ooh, so it's actually going to be good?
Ooh! Wow. I guess you're still reeling from Jersey Shore there.
A little bit.
That was a direct shot. They've also hired a duo of writers from Smallville, so they're definitely still playing towards teens, but we'll never know till it starts, basically. But on Sci-Fi, though, who does their own original series, IO9 said that their first impression of Helix is that it's Sci-Fi's best new show in years.
Ooh, that's good. I've heard about Helix, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to get into it or not.
Well, Helix I learned about at San Diego. When you post a graphic that covers up the entire side of a tower of a hotel, you kind of get curious. Somebody obviously felt enough to spend money on it. But it's an Arctic thriller where you have a new virus outbreak due to people messing around the Arctic. I'm not into outbreak shows personally, but there's a lot of people saying a lot of great positive things about it. I may check it out. For example, IO9 had 5 great things to say and only 3 negative things to say about the series.
Do you have the list in front of you?
Yeah, it says the good is slick, sweet horror, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't want to read all the paragraphs. The good is the slick, sweet horror, the characters, the near future, even when it's bad, it's good, and the devil's in the details.
Okay.
The bad is according to them, who's really in charge? Dr. Hiroshi Hitaki's number 2, who apparently was an annoying cast member, and Lost Rips. It's that moment where, a song is occurring like when someone's being disemboweled and it just doesn't match up.
Mm.
They give
I don't know, if they really liked the characters, though, like, that's all you really need to push a story like that.
Yeah, well, the overall verdict is they're sold. They were sold on Helix before the title the title scene came. So whatever happened before the title, they were already into the series. That's a strong statement. And this was news I wish I could have still gotten V's reaction, because she loved this. There was a project that came out in 2011, or was announced, called Knights of Badassdom. It's been delayed for 2 years. It's coming out in 2014. Actually, that'd be 3 years. Basically what you can do is you can either sign a petition as of mid-January and arrange enough people to go to a movie theater that the movie theater will actually request it for a special showing for you. And then you have to come up with a certain amount of money to reserve it, or you can wait till February 11th when it's being put out on digital download and release.
Okay. That's starting to be really popular, where you can get a theater to, like, not just Fathom events, but just some random movie like anime or something, where the movie theater's actually going to play it, even though it's not on the normal run.
Well, it's probably because ticket sales are not exactly what they used to be. But do you know what Knights of Badassdom is?
Nope.
V is the one who turned me on to this, and I want to see it. It involves several actual notable actors, the most famous of which I know of are Summer Glau from Firefly Flame.
Okay.
Firefly fame. Wow, I backed that one up real well. And Peter Dinklage from Game of Thrones and X-Men Days of Futures Past.
Mm-hmm.
They play a group of LARPers who get their hands on an actual spell book and accidentally release a demon who starts killing their cohorts, so they have to find a way to put her back.
Oh, no.
You know, Dinklage is playing a short, pissed-off, drunk LARPer, and I'm already in.
Right. Well, anything Peter Dinklage is in, you know it's going to be awesome.
But it stars Peter Dinklage, Ryan Quanten, Steve Zahn, Summer Glau, Jimmy Simpson, Dan Pudi, and W. Earl Burton. I gotta see it.
Just from the premise alone, again, anything that has to do with LARPing, that's going to be awesome.
I know. And from something that made me happy to something that makes me sad. The Naked Gun is going to be rebooted.
Really?
Yeah, Ed Helms from The Office has been asked to play Frank Drebin, the role that was made famous by Leslie Nielsen. Now, I grew up, I enjoyed the TV series. I enjoyed the movies immensely. Even the one everyone called bad, Naked Gun 33 1/3. Really liked it. Not to say that Ed Helms is bad at what he does, but Leslie Nielsen really made that role. I can't imagine anyone else playing the same character. If you want to put in a new one, that's your business, but a lot of people tend to imprint on comedic roles.
Yeah, well, that's... Especially when it's comedy, like, that's more of an individual artist thing, because don't they usually write their own stuff?
Well, a lot of their personality ends up in the comedy, yes.
That's going to be really hard. Like, either they have to rewrite the whole thing, or I don't know if it's really going to be that good.
Yeah, it's way too subjective, and I just don't like this idea.
I don't know. Well, when you first said it, it didn't sound very appealing to me.
Well, how about this? There could be the cheapest Doctor Who auction in history coming up.
The cheapest?
Yeah, if you happen to be in London on the 18th, they have 55 lots of costumes and props from Doctor Who and Torchwood, including the Tar and Wood Beast costume from the Androids of Terror episode. It was arguably one of the worst monster costumes in the entire 50-year run of the show. And they have, to give you an example, they expect this Tar and Wood Beast costume to go for £1,500 to £2,000. You know, only about $4,000, and you can actually own a piece of the show. But this company, Bonham's Entertainment Memorabilia Auction, has actually had previous Doctor Who auctions that had similar results, such as a Mester for £1,200, a lightly used Candyman for £1,920, a trio of Plasmatons went for just £480. So
Oh, man.
Yeah, if you happen to be in London with a couple $1,000s, you could actually end up with a piece of the series.
That'd be pretty cool. And I'm sure the prices are going to go up even higher after Day of the Doctor happened.
It's very likely. And also in Disney news, there's a new animated film set for release. You aware of this one?
Is this the Polynesian one?
Yes, Moana.
Okay. I didn't remember what it was called.
Oh, it's set for a 2018 release. It's about Moana Wailiki. She's a sea voyaging enthusiast and the only daughter of a chief in a long line of navigators. Her family ends up needing help, so she sets off on a journey. So the film also includes run-ins with demigods and spirits taken from actual mythology.
Cool. Like Polynesian mythology?
I don't know about Polynesian because the name sounds really Hawaiian to me. So I don't know what the basis of this is. I'm not familiar with the legend of Moana myself. but the music's being done by Mark Mancina, who did the music for The Lion King, Tarzan, and Brother Bear. Arguably 3 of the best soundtracks in the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
So it does look like Disney's hit another age where they're actually doing good stuff, because before, if you think about Atlantis, which did well, and then Chicken Little, which did horrible, and Meet the Robinsons, which did well, and Home on the Range, which people even forget exists.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's probably their least favorite one out of everyone I talk to that are Disney fanatics.
Really? Home on the Range?
Oh, yeah.
I keep forgetting it does exist. Every time I read that article, I'm like, oh, yeah. I remember that. I swore I'd never go see it, and I still won't.
Well, I think what happened, my little theory that I've especially read about all over Tumblr is that now that they're getting back into doing more Disney princesses, and they just finished doing their double princess with Frozen,
right?
But now they're going to take a break, and it's like, oh well, now we need another, princess of color, because that always comes up. But I would love to see a Polynesian princess. That would be really awesome.
Yeah, I just loved how I skipped over how you first called it Frozen. It sounded like a He-Man enemy.
I was thinking of Anna as the character, and for some reason that's how I said it.
Frozen. Sounds like a Roseanne Barr joke. But we can break down here for a second. What was your opinion on the whole controversy about what some people called the gentrification of the character from Brave?
Well, anytime that comes up, I almost want to just be like, guys, can we just move, Brave art is already done with, can we just be done talking about it? It's kind of...
Well, I'm asking your opinion.
Oh.
I'm not going to sit here and argue with you about it. I want to know your opinion.
Oh, well, just the fact that, I'm okay that they didn't have to do any of the other, just for the fact that she didn't have to find, a love interest, and I was actually more upset that Brave kind of not copied, but they kind of took after Brother Bear a little bit.
Oh, I think you misunderstand the question, actually.
Oh, sorry, maybe I did.
No, the period where Merida was supposed to be inducted as the latest Disney princess.
Oh, and they were upset because she was all skinny-fied and all prettified.
She was skinny-fied, there was no bow on her hip, it was all this weird, at least in my case, I thought it was weird acrimony. I want to know what your opinion on that was. Okay,
yeah. Well, honestly, I didn't even notice that much of a difference, and I don't know if that's just because I'm just try to be blind to these things, but I was a little sad that, they really had to make her, she didn't even seem that fat, in the first place. That's, for once, she had a really normal body build, so I was kind of sad that they had to emphasize, oh no, we're going to make her really skinny again. So I was really sad about that. I did actually like her pretty dress, and that's just, I don't know, I might just like pretty dresses. I know a lot of people that were really upset that she couldn't look all, dirty and gnarly and stuff, and I don't know, that didn't bug me as much.
to me, and I think to at least Steve and Jesse, was kind of the opposite issue in that we didn't understand why she couldn't be tough and feminine. This was supposed to be a coronation ceremony, so there's really not much of a reason for you to put the bow on the character in that circumstance. And there was also the idea that we talked about it when the movie was done. She'd actually moved into a more relaxed feminine mode by getting along more with her mother and understanding how family and tradition were important. So we thought that the coronation ceremony was showing how the character grew up, not how she was arrested at being a 14-year-old for the rest of her life.
I've actually never heard of people saying it that way.
It was our opinion. We have no proof behind it other than our own conversation. But, we just didn't see any reason why the character couldn't be both tough and beautiful, compartmentalize one for the other. There's no reason that she had to forsake her ruggedness just for the sake of an appearance. But we thought it was kind of funny how everyone just immediately judges character on appearance, even though most Disney storylines have nothing to do with judging on appearances.
Right. And I don't know, I think for me, because looking nice for coordination, that is pretty important. You don't want to be all rugged, even though it's kind of in the heart of your character to be that way.
Right.
It's just the fact that they did, they did basically change her entire body structure in the new redesign.
Yeah.
That's what most people are upset about.
I just thought it was an example of growing up and growing into her new facet in life. But that was my opinion.
Yeah, well, she does have to be a princess now, so I guess that's...
Yeah.
They don't talk about that, and Brave was the first one where they actually did kind of go into, you know what, being a princess is hard work, and you gotta play the role.
I thought that's where Brave was effective, was that you could be a princess, but you also didn't have to be the damsel in distress, and you didn't have to be the one with the perfect hair. That's not to say that you don't eventually need to clean up for something, but at the same time, it was a breaking of the mold, so I didn't mind it at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair. I'd say that's fair.
We'll move from there into Marvel comic news. Right now, the biggest story in X-Men going on, at least the Adjectiveless series, which is an all-female team, is that there's a new Sisterhood of Evil Mutants coming, being led by a new Lady Deathstrike. And they've revealed two of her new cohorts as Typhoid Mary from Daredevil fame and the new Enchantress. The Enchantress is a longtime Thor villain. Before Ragnarok occurred, it was a full-grown woman who had romantic trysts with both Thor and Loki at different times, both as antagonist and hero. Since Ragnarok happened and most of the Asgardians were bonded to new people, it appears that the new Enchantress is somewhere around 18 to 20 years old. Think of Paris Hilton with the powers of a sorceress. It's kind of frightening.
Not an image I wanted in my head.
Well, Typhoid Mary is almost as frightening because she has multiple personality syndrome. She's sometimes fallen in love with Daredevil, sometimes tried to kill him. She has limited telekinetic and pyrokinetic powers and is pretty damn good as a fighter.
Oh.
So these are the new ones they're dealing with, let alone Lady Deathstrike is not the same one. Her original body died, and she's transferred her consciousness into a young Spanish socialite. You know, she's the image uses sugar skulls, but it's the same attitude, and she's using more nanotechnology. You know, it's an interesting group of villains to build for this team, for sure. It is one of those things, though, where I kind of question it, because like the discussion on comic books, or on video games, I should say, comic books is generally sold towards males, so I don't know if this will get enough female readership.
Well, just having more female, I think a huge problem when I was growing up reading comics was that there was almost no one for me to relate to. So I think it's nice that they're trying to build up more of a female character database. Mm-hmm. But whether or not, you know, the characters actually are good or not is, you know, still to be said as they're... But it's nice that they're trying.
I think that's where X-Men breaks the mold as far as most superhero teams, in that whereas most teams have one or two major females and a whole bunch of sub-ones, the X-Men are littered with strong female characters. Mm-hmm. Just of all kinds, shapes, and variety. Also in the X universe, there's a picture released of the new X-Factor team led by Polaris. It looks like it's going to involve Gambit, Quicksilver, Danger, and possibly Elixir, as well as a mystery character.
Ooh.
This is a nice, well-rounded crew. The storyline is that the Marvel Universe's equivalent of Google has decided to give back to the world by creating a superhero team, so they've hired a bunch of mutants, and they bought the name of X-Factor from the people using it previously, and they're sending them on missions.
I wonder what kind... Like, if they're building up this crew, I wonder what kind of, like, villains we're going to be dealing with.
I wouldn't be surprised if eventually the corporation they work for turns out to be part of the problem. It does almost seem inevitable at some points.
As far as storylines go, yeah. Yeah.
And also in Marvel comic news, there is a new hardcover coming in May for the X-Men universe called No More Humans. It's going to be a 128-page book that's coming out on May 7th, 2014. The story is being written by a notable writer named Mike Carey. And the story is that the X-Men wake up to a world one day where there's no humans at all in it. There's just mutants.
Wow.
That isn't to say the population has suddenly grown powers. That is to say all the humans have vanished. Only the mutants are left.
Somebody's wishes came true.
Yeah, it kind of leads to the question for several of these teams because, you know, obviously this is a mutant problem, so even though X teams have arguments, they're going to have to figure this one out together. But when you have crews like Cyclopses who's training to defend themselves against humanity in all forms, what happens when they're not around?
Right, like what are you going to do now?
Yeah, literally, what is your team's purpose? And then let alone, you know, what happens to Wolverine's school when that school no longer needs to protect its students from the people outside?
Right.
So this could lead to a lot of shifting allegiances just because you can now see how the other half lives without any interference.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that's something I've always wondered, where it's like, okay, you have a lot of characters that want humans to be gone, what would happen if they didn't even exist. So I guess this is really cool that they're delving into that.
And it's probably going to be Magneto's wet dream, frankly.
Oh, yeah.
And in DC comic news, lately the main Batman series has been going through the 0-year storyline, which is showing the early days of Bruce Wayne as Batman, getting used to the costume. It's a jump backwards. Well, in February's issue 28, they're actually taking a look 6 months in the future. And the curiosity about it is that they released a teaser with it with this new character design, which appears to be some kind of new female Batman partner. There's no name attached to it. It looks like she mostly has a shaved head except for a swatch of black on the top of her head, Batman tattoo on one arm, dressing in body armor that seems similar to Nightwing designs. But in difference to most Robins, who carries a cape, dresses in bright colors, and is generally looks like they're ready for a physical fight, whatever this character is she carries a backpack full of tools, a couple extra cases, and a long rifle. I don't know if this is the new version of Robin based on a character that we've seen running around named Harper Row. I don't know if this is a new spoiler. We discussed it a little bit in the show that unfortunately was eaten by my computer. We think that maybe this character, in difference to previous Robins, may be one that just covers Batman from a distance.
Well, especially if she has a rifle.
Yeah, I mean, just because she has a rifle doesn't mean she's using slugs. She may be using some weird new kind of beanbag round or some kind of non-lethal ammunition. But it also does make things a little bit simpler when the Bat wouldn't have to necessarily train someone to handle themselves in a fight. Just, watch through the scope and train her up slowly.
Well, he's probably gotten really tired of Batman or Robin the Boy Hostage at this point.
That was one of the things that stuck out, was this would be the first Robin that didn't appear to use any type of red. This one could actually hide. Mm-hmm. So, I don't read Batman books in general. I'm tired of the whole I'm too gritty for this world attitude that the character has, but I am curious enough to try and find out what this character is. Yeah,
well, and not having, even if it's not meant to be Robin or whatever that turns out to be, it'd just be interesting how, if there's no other characters and it's just Batman and this new character, if we're actually going to get a huge backstory on this or not, or if she's going to be staying in the shadows.
Stay in the shadows where you belong, woman. Barefoot! Also in the Batman universe, Red Hood and the Outlaws, as of issue 29, there's actually a writer returning to this book. After following James Tynion's role on the series, or run on the series, I should say, Will Pfeiffer is returning to take over the book with issue 29 this March. Red Hood and the Outlaws has been kind of a weird book because it has some of my favorite characters in the Batman universe, like Starfire and Arsenal and Jason Todd, who was the second Robin. It's kind of like they're all written to be scoundrels of one sort or another, but they don't quite come across that way. They come across like douchebag teenagers for some reason.
Oh. Isn't that how all teenagers kind of show up anyway?
I'll grant you that. But I'm hoping that this writer can kind of turn it around and we can actually get back to good storytelling, because it seems like a lot of people just freak out about how these characters act. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Right. All teen angst.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're supposed to be in their mid-20s, I'm sure, like a lot of young heroes are. They just don't come across that way.
That's unfortunate.
But another new 52 comic that was out at the beginning that is now ending is Animal Man. Animal Man's with March's 2014 issue number 29. Animal Man's kind of in a funny place because it was one of those books that is doing critically very well. I guess the sales just aren't following up. He's got this very strange and hard-to-define power where he takes on the characteristics of different animals he can connect to across the planet. But his first series was kind of goofy because it's a hard-to-explain power and it sounds ridiculous. Since the New 52 version, he's had this very dark sort of series where even his son and his family died.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's been really dark, a little bit depressing, but I'm just kind of surprised the series is going away. I heard it was like Aquaman, a surprise hit. So, shows what I know, I suppose.
Well, I've never even heard of it, so that might be the problem right there.
That could be. It is one of those characters that started out as a cult favorite.
So they just gotta get word.
Well, speaking of word, Kyle Rayner is one of the Green Lanterns who's recently been a White Lantern. And there's a writer that's supposed to take him in an all-new direction post Lights Out. Who is the writer here? See, as of October's Lights Out, they found out that the light that Green Lanterns and all the other Lantern Corps use, it can actually run out and destroy the universe if it does. So there were all these weird creatures that were the avatars of the different color spectrums. They sacrificed their lives to replenish it. Now it's almost like a combination of superheroics and, like super ecologists. They're all worried about how much light they use now. And
I guess you got to put a limitate. Like, it seems like as they conquer more powers, you got to come up with some kind of limitation for them to fight against.
I suppose that's true, but for some reason, this whole idea bothers me more than just the simple weaknesses that Green Lanterns used to have to wood and yellow. It does seem kind of odd to send a bunch of soldiers out and give them the equivalent of a rifle with one clip and saying, "That's all I'm giving you."
Yeah, I guess if you are fighting the universe and all of a sudden you can't use your powers as efficiently anymore, that would be a problem.
Yeah, I would think so. I don't quite know where it's going. I stopped reading Green Lantern a while ago. I think it's gone downhill since the whole Black Lantern saga.
Mm-hmm.
Do you watch Arrow at all?
No, I'm going to start watching, though, because enough people have convinced me to watch it. It sounds like the new season has gone in a really awesome direction.
That's what I heard. I watched the last episode just trying to see the Flash and see where things headed. I saw that it looks like Deathstroke is the villain behind a lot of the machinations going on in the series, but what got me interested was an announcement last week that they've cast another villain for the next season, which I think would be season 3.
Yeah.
Robert Nepper, who's been on Prison Break and co-star of Mob City, he's been cast in the next season to play the Clock King. The Clock King is a regular, I guess you could say, non-powered villain in the DC universe whose specialty is punctuality and timing. He's very obsessed with how things fit together as far as timing. So he's being brought in as the newest villain in Arrow, and I think that's appropriate. A lot of series like Smallville and the like, they always have that issue where they either bring in villains who are too powerful or not powerful enough. Mm-hmm. And I think the Clock King, a villain without any definitive powers, just a very acute mind, is perfect for a series like Arrow.
Well, and especially because it's not like a very flashy, superhuman type show. Right.
I have trouble watching it myself, but number one, I'm not a DC fan, and number two, there's some of the acrobatics in it that I have trouble buying on face, but to each their own.
Mm-hmm.
In general comic book news, there was a universe of books that came out in Image around a character called the Bomb Queen. She was a villain who actually managed to take over her city and destroy all the heroes in it.
Oh.
In the same universe is a new series starting called The Five Weapons. The storyline is that there's a school for assassins that takes in kids, and they can specialize in one of 5 weapon types: blades, staves, which includes bats, archery, exotic weapons like ropes and garrotes, or guns. And these kids are forcefully taken into the school and trained to be assassins. Those that survive become master assassins. Those that don't get buried.
Get assassinated.
Yeah, this seems like kind of a cross between a Chinese movie and Lord of the Flies, and it's just weird enough where I want to read it. The headmistress of this...
It almost sounds like they're having to fight each other.
It seems that way. I mean, the headmistress of the school is this African-looking woman with a large hat and her pet cheetah.
Huh.
It is just weird enough that I'm very curious. I want to read this. I always enjoy stories like Battle Royal and like Avengers Academy, not because I like to see horrible things happen, but stories like this are generally where you really delve into the nature of people and what it's like to be young in a tumultuous era.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make any sense?
Just the psychology of it can be very interesting as far as if you got a young developing mind and you still don't have a good grasp of how the world works.
Yeah, I guess the short version of what I'm trying to get across is I'm always curious what happens to when good people are pushed to their extremes.
Mm-hmm.
When the chips are right, when the chips are absolutely down, will that person that's been your best friend forever suddenly stab you just because it buys them an extra 5 minutes?
Right.
Not to say I want to live in such a world, but it is a curiosity to me.
Mm-hmm.
And also in general comic book news, there was an article on Wall Street Cheat Sheet that was very nice because it tracks how movies can affect comic books.
Okay.
A good example is that they said that the biggest selling comic book of one of the biggest selling comic books in 2012 was the X-Men series. Now, that may have to do with the number of overall series, obviously. But they sold 7.8 million units in 2012, and they said that part of that had to do with the success of movies. They pointed out that when X-Men 2, X-Men United came out in 2003, which used to be considered the best of those, the comic sales for X-Men peaked in 2005 with 7.3 million units. But when X-Men The Last Stand was released in 2006, a much worse movie, it trended so far downward that by the time X-Men Origins Wolverine came out, they hit a 10-year low at 3.4 million sold.
Ooh.
So 2 bad movies in a row cost them sales of comics. And then when X-Men First Class came out, that bumped up to an all-new high at 7.8 million in 2012.
That sounds about right. I know, and that's usually when people start talking about X-Men.
Yeah, well, they showed similar examples, and I will link the story so people can read it, but basically any comic books that have had movies have either had rises due to good movies or, bumps in their sales due to bad movies.
Mm-hmm.
It was all about who sold the most comics in 2012, but I read that thinking, wow, the movies really do influence what I'm reading.
Mm-hmm.
And something that interested me was, while I was messing around on Twitter last week, I sent a tweet to Adam Warren. He is an artist who for a while did the American adaptation of the Dirty Pair comics. He's also doing an original graphic novel series called Empowered about a Z-list superhero.
Okay.
And at random, I just told him, we really enjoy your work, and I wanted to know if there were any new books coming out. He sent me an immediate response of something he posted that morning.
Ooh.
He's coming out with a new one-shot called Empowered Internal Medicine, and he linked it directly to the Tumblr that he posted literally minutes before he gave it to me. So you could almost say I actually got my first scoop.
Nice.
We'll post a picture of the cover, but it's a new one-shot based around the hospital in the Empowered universe. How can I explain Empowered? Imagine you're a young woman who studies superheroes all her life. They're very common.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the mail, for no reason, you get this hypermembrane, which grants you super strength, invulnerability, energy blasts, partial invisibility. The problem is that it tears easier than tissue paper, and as soon as you tear it, you lose your powers. This poor woman. Well, it's a series that Adam Warren created originally because somebody requested a superhero that was always tied up, bondage adventures in the worst. And it turns out that as he wrote this story about this young woman who's this bombastic blonde with a voluptuous figure and horrible self-image issues, the further he wrote, the more a story started to come out, to the point where his 8th graphic novel in this series came out this year.
Oh, wow.
The story developed to the point where she fell in love with a random thug who was helping out a supervillain. Her best friend is a ninja that initially tried to kidnap her and offer her up as a bounty, but somebody refused to pay for it. Not only that, the ninja is a horrible drunk, and she's from New Jersey.
Oh, a Jersey girl.
Yeah, well, it's not Japanese ninja clans. When I say a ninja, I mean the ninja clans are out of their bastardizations out of New York and New Jersey, and a conversation between several people in the clan started with the words "my ninja."
Oh no.
V is not a fan of anime. She adores this series.
Okay, I'll have to check it out.
Remind me if I'm going to see you at Anime Los Angeles. I have the first couple volumes.
Oh, and you will see me there, so I'll definitely, if you could bring those, I'd love to see them.
It's hilarious. It's not meant for kids, but it's a good series to pick up and just laugh at.
Sweet.
There was a story we talked about 4 to 6 weeks ago, because in September, DC did what's called Villain Months, or Villain Month. They replaced all of their regular series with one-shot starring villains. And their sales spiked. For the first time in years, they had won a majority market share from Marvel. 40% of sales versus 29%. And I had argued with a few people on Facebook that this is not a sign of new DC domination. This is a sales gimmick that did well, but I didn't see it translating to regular sales because these aren't regular series starring these characters at all.
No.
But as you can imagine, online I was called a troll and an idiot. Unfortunately... Go ahead.
It just makes sense to me. No, I'm agreeing with what you said, because to me in the DC universe, a lot of the you see a lot more of these villains in the DC universe than I've seen of the villains in Marvel universe, in my opinion. And so being able to have chapters dedicated to them is certainly something I'd be interested in. But you wouldn't be able to base anything else on that. So
yeah, I don't like saying I told you so, but the numbers on November sales came out. And unfortunately, I was proven right, because while Marvel hasn't taken a commanding share, they have retaken the overall unit share at 33% versus DC at just below 32%. So part of that has to do with the fact that during Villains Month, if retailers ordered 100 issues of any one of the 52 Villain one-shots, they got a special 3D cover that they were trying to sell. And when this story came out, I was curious to see how well those special 3D covers were doing. Unfortunately, even though you had to order 100 issues to get it, they must not have been great sellers. I've seen them on eBay for anywhere from $15 per issue all the way down to $2.50 an issue.
Oof.
So this did not translate.
Yeah, gimmicks don't always work that way.
Yeah, this didn't translate into great money. And as I tried to explain to people, just because these guys ordered hundreds of issues to get these 3Ds doesn't mean they actually sold those hundreds of issues. They were after those 3D covers.
Are they allowed to return issues like bookstores can return books?
Under some circumstances, I know some places will take it, but under these cases where you had to order a certain quantity to get the 3Ds, I don't think they had that option. There have been some cutthroat ideas, though, where it's like Marvel once offered special alternative covers to some series if they would take the covers off DC books and send it to them, like rip the covers right off.
Oh. Well, ripping them off, doesn't that render them, like, you're not allowed to sell them anymore at that point? Yeah,
but they generally do that to issues that are so oversaturated in the market, they're not worth much to begin with. So it is cutthroat and it's a little bit dickish of a move, but at the same time, if you got that many extra issues that are worth absolutely nothing, there have been several retailers that are willing to go through with it.
Yeah.
And we'll move from there into anime news. There was a big story that came out of AkiCon last year. Did you hear about the mess with the DJ?
Keep going, maybe I'll remember.
Okay, AkiCon took place a couple weekends ago, and they hired a DJ, Victor Malice, a.k.a. is Leslie Shotwell. That's his real name. He's apparently a friend of the AkiCon promoters, and several people had misgivings when they found out he was signed, because it turns out he's a convicted sex offender. Not only is he a convicted sex offender, he's a sex offender involving minors. So a lot of people asked, why is this man being allowed at a place that's obviously going to draw a younger crowd? Well, it turns out that he was brought up on allegations of sexual harassment during the con.
Wasn't he one of the founders?
No, he's a friend of one of the founders, though, because a lot of people are saying they complained on AkiCon's forums, and those forums and their Facebook posts were deleted. So in other words, they just didn't want to hear about the problems. And now this guy's awaiting trial on February 7th, I believe, but he's not currently in custody, so nobody knows exactly what's being brought up for trial for. This is just a huge problem. Most people I know that talk about AkiCon, they talk about it being disreputable, being somewhat shady, and this is... If this man's convicted of anything, that's kind of the icing on the cake. I don't know how a con can survive under this kind of scandal.
No, not when you, like, just having the word sex offender is never a good sign for a convention.
Yeah, but it's not like they hit him either. He was one of their premier guests during the convention, too. He was, like, on the flyers.
Yeah, and who knows, like, how many... I just don't even want to think of, like, all these people, if he's been this guest, and all these people that, like, want to meet him and probably are now scarred for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, and I'm always of mixed minds about this, because if you pay your debt to society, that's something, but you should still limit your risk.
Right.
Oh, well. And Japanese manga fans are upset because a feminist group is moving to have lolly manga banned. According to... wow, I should have had this a little more prepared. There's a group of feminists who are trying to get lolly manga banned as hate speech. Their quote is, "Even if it's 2D, it's sexually abusive hate speech as damaging to the human rights of victims as racist hate speech, and as such should be absolutely banned," unquote.
Like, what are they trying to ban? Like, are they saying just from print, or are they trying to get rid of this, like, on the internet in general?
They're trying to basically ban all manga produced in Japan that has to do with lolly characters.
So we're talking actually in Japan, this group is
I imagine this would put a major kink into series like Ori no Omoto and several others that have lollies doing questionable acts. I don't think this has to do with, young female heroes so much as, like, ecchi and hentai books. which, arguably is a pretty big share of manga these days.
Yeah.
It is kind of a debate because we talked about it in the recording on the Lost, and we're of mixed minds because it may be someone else's country, it's their culture and everything. But there is something to be said about the proliferation of this stuff in Japan and just how really morally questionable it is.
Right. Well, there's the morally questionable and the fact that, so many mangaka, that's what a lot of the doujinshi is out there, too.
Yeah.
People are getting big off of writing this content.
Yeah, even Shonen Jump came out just a couple days ago to talk about the lolly ban and how it shouldn't happen and it's just going to kill the industry. That's an opinion, but it would hurt the industry, but I would imagine all that means is you got to write different stories. There's got to be more stories out there that don't involve young people getting naked or doing ecchi things. Two Love Rue's been out forever, and it bothers me.
Well, I would just hope that this would just get us into new stories and new fads. I know that we're starting to see less and less moe type stuff. Mm-hmm. Who knows what we might come up with next, because people just might be, even if they don't end up banning loli stuff, at least maybe this will encourage people to come up with different stories, and that is always going to be a welcoming thing to me.
Oh, I know, I'm sure it's hell done with moe.
Yeah.
Speaking of moe, there was an otaku busted for using a criminally cute Idolmaster credit card.
What?
Well, Mitsui Sumitomo, who is a big bank in Japan, okay? They have a line of credit cards that involve Idolmaster characters. Well, one person from Japan visiting the U.S. tried to use his credit card, which does apparently have about a dozen Idolmaster characters on the card, and the American people working at the store looked at it and thought it was so fake, they had the man arrested.
Oh, wow.
Mitsui Sumitomo actually had to step in, intervene, tell him it was real, and apologize to the poor man.
Well, of course.
Yeah, this is another one of those examples of the wide cultural divide between Japan and the U.S. when this man has a legitimate credit card, and instead of calling the bank first, they just decided to arrest him.
Right. Wow. Because it's the credit cards.
It's legit. It's Visa.
Okay. Wow. Well, because don't some cards, you're able to actually put whatever picture you want on the card?
Oh yeah, I'm not arguing with you in the least. I'm just surprised that the first reaction of these people is fake, arrest. Instead of they didn't just ask him, can I call the number and verify this, or can I call Visa and double check this? It's just, you're an asshole. Go sit over there.
Oh my goodness.
Well,
and the police didn't even say, look, this is a bank issue?
You would think they did, but apparently the police were about to pick him up when Mitsui Sumitomo finally called.
Wow.
So, it's amazing.
Where was this?
They didn't release the store because obviously they don't want to give him bad press. But I would like to know where it is just so I avoid that place because, as I told Steve, I have a credit card with a Chargers helmet on it. I might be arrested.
I don't know. I've seen some pretty interesting covers on cards back when I did retail, but I don't know. If you're gonna be a cash register, it's a pretty standard thing to be like, oh, this doesn't seem real. Let's call a card.
Yeah.
Versus making a big commotion and calling the police. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, they obviously thought the commotion was more fun. And Attack on Titan, I'm not a fan of, but because a lot of people are, I cannot ignore the fact that they are now used to endorse glasses.
Really?
Yeah, there's new ads that have come out with one of the lead characters of Shingeki no Kyojin, Mikasa. She's actually wearing framed glasses that have been produced by the Jin's Glasses Company, and is part of an advertising line where you see pictures of the characters wearing their glasses, and those glasses are sold in stores. I don't know. The series about giant humans munching small humans doesn't exactly make me think about eyesight.
Well, you want to be able to see from, if... I know these are giant...
No, if that's about to happen to me, I don't want to see shit.
I don't know. The characters themselves, though, just because it's such a huge show, everyone I've talked to always has, oh, this is my favorite character, and if you see them as sporting a really awesome pair of glasses, that might be enough to convince you to be like, oh, my favorite character looks awesome in these glasses. I should wear these glasses too. Especially if you're going to cosplay them.
Yeah, I watched the first episode of the series and I was done after that, but to each their own. You know, what can I say? I like hope in my series.
Well, there's whatever's in that basement.
I'm gonna live.
That's the last bit of hope in the series.
Yeah, I'm gonna live off it. In general nerd news, are you familiar with Bitcoins, Carolyn?
Yes.
Okay, these things have hit it big to the point where somebody's actually close to producing a Bitcoin miner.
Really?
Yeah, Alex Lund from Sweden has produced a machine that has 4 cooling fans and CPU sets, and may be the first in a line of available Bitcoin miners. He may beat the market to it.
Oh, wow.
It doesn't say how much this thing would cost, although judging by the parts in it, it would probably cost somewhere between $800 to $1,000, and it would probably push your electric bill to about $200 to $300 a month. But when you consider that Bitcoins right now are hovering between $800 and $1,000, might be worth the money. The reward for Bitcoins has dropped to about 25 from 50 since they're worth more now, and that number will probably drop a bit more as Bitcoins are produced more and mined more. But at the same time, I know somebody who was in on this back when these things were worth $30 a piece, so I'm sure he's a happy camper right now.
A good investment, that's for sure.
Absolutely. 59 Bitcoins right now can get you a Tesla S.
Oh, wow.
The electric car, the sedan.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about a story like 6 weeks ago. There was a guy who bought $25 worth of Bitcoins back in 2009. When he heard they were worth something, he went back and checked, and he sold a quarter of his $25 of Bitcoins. He was able to get $120,000 out of it after taxes, and was able to put a down payment on a flat.
Oh, wow.
That was from an investment he forgot about.
It's like, wait a second, don't I have one of those?
It's like one of those things where you go back to your account and realize, oh yeah, I won the lottery way back when. There was a elementary school teacher in Japan. She worked at Setagaya City. She was busted for uncensored porn. Now
what was she trying to teach?
Well, she was apparently a very liked and respected teacher in the elementary school. She was known as a very kind person, but apparently she made ends meet by doing AV. You know, the audio-video idol work, a.k.a. Japanese porn. The problem is that under the name Reiko Magi, M-A-G-I, she apparently signed a contract that said she was going to do uncensored porn, which is highly illegal in Japan. So she was arrested.
Oh, wow. And she's a teacher?
Yeah, they never actually released her real name, obviously, for her own privacy. Unfortunately, because she's been both Shizuru Juno and Reiko Magi in different movies, she's pretty easy to identify right now. She was apparently popular in the AV circuit because she wasn't a hard body like a lot of people. She was described as white-skinned and a volumey housewife. I guess you could say the equivalent. Yeah, kind of the equivalent of I guess you could say a Japanese MILF or like woman next door type of person.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's more or less sad that even though she's a good elementary school teacher, this is obviously going to follow her around now.
Oh yeah, you can't teach kids if, again, like when you're gonna have any kind of porn or sex offender, like that's even if you were innocent, that's still gonna ruin you for the rest of your life.
Well, it's especially sad when you consider how the internet's proliferated. It's getting more and more likely that women, at least once in their life, try to supplement their income by either racy or pornographic pictures. Sooner or later, we're going to have to accept that it's a new world out there.
Oh, yeah.
Well, in happier...
People wonder why the fight for feminism is getting so big.
Yeah, you ain't kidding. In other news on IO9, there was a cosplayer named Genoveva. Are you familiar with her?
No. Who she cosplayed?
Oh, I don't know myself. It's Genovefa. She was brought up on IO9 because she created a group of Victorian dresses based on Starfleet uniforms.
Oh, I did see that. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just going to post a link, and I don't think I need to say much more than that. She came up with a really interesting and demure design. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
And also on IO9, there was a gallery of photos that were taken close-up of snowflakes. Alexei Kozhatov made a homemade camera rig to take close-up photos of snowflakes without microscopes. And it's amazing the geometric shapes that are in snowflakes.
Yeah.
Let alone some of them seem to have very prismatic effects to them. It's very pretty.
Mm-hmm. Well, and going back to Frozen, like the opening sequence, like those, it's just weird to think that that's actually what snowflakes can look like.
Really? There's also a gallery on IO9 of abandoned observatories. You wouldn't think there's that many, but there's a lot of abandoned observatories all across the country. They do
Interesting.
they do look like nice places to take photos if you got certain things, but it is funny how a couple of photos near the bottom looks like Planet Express from Futurama.
Oh no.
The coincidences, the coincidences. And there's also a law that was revealed to me on IO9. It's called the Zipf Law, named after linguist George Zipf, who found an actual mathematical equation as to how cities' expansion affects their population size and vice versa. Using the model, you can apparently predict which cities are going to become megacities in the near future.
Okay. Like, just based on, like, how families move in and grow?
I'm sure it's population, emigration, as well as birth rates, and versus size of cities.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like how New York in the U.S. Census in 2010 is rated as the largest city, even though it technically covers probably some of the smallest surface area.
Right. Huh. Because there's just so many people packed in tiny places.
Right. It's like I say, New York and San Francisco are two places built primarily on islands, so they're built up, whereas Los Angeles and Houston are built in deserts, they're built out.
Right.
So it is a curiosity. And V seems to want to take a space trip at some point. And she's excited to find out that NASA by 2015 plans to grow turnips and basil on the moon.
Ooh.
What they're going to do is launch several metal boxes that contain seed and soil, so all they really need after a few water injections is light, and you can get a lot of that on the moon. It could be the precursor to space colonization, because I found a YouTube video by a professor at a USC who's created a large-scale 3D printer that basically squirts out concrete like most 3D printers would work with plastics. And you can use these if you can send them up to the moon to create prefab buildings that are ready. All you need to do is hook up oxygen, and they're all set.
Nice.
So,
Well, it's about time we're starting to head in that direction.
yeah, so we could be very close to moon colonies, and after that, you got to wonder how long it'll be before we finally get to Mars.
Mm-hmm.
You know, take off the Mars. Yeah, I know that was painful. Further nerd news: there's a cybernetic implant that can repair brain damage.
Ooh, how does that work?
It's who developed this? A team of neuroscientists from Case Western Reserve University and the University of Kansas Medical Center. They've developed the equivalent of a brain Bluetooth, is the easy way to put it. They call it the brain-machine-brain interface. Okay. You know, the brain basically works by one section of the brain sending a message to another part of the brain, and it causes all kinds of functions and things to happen.
Mm-hmm.
When there's traumatic brain damage, sometimes on the surface, it can break that connection. Well, what they can do is implant a device in one part of the brain that will create a closed-loop microelectronic system. They'll implant a secondary device in the area that's damaged, and it can send the signals that were previously broken to the parts of the brain that require it.
Huh.
It's literally closing the gaps in the signals. I mean, between this and the fact that there are limbs out there that can now sense touch and, you know, work on muscle twitches rather than just, you know, the weird hooks and pulleys that we've used in a lot of prosthetics, we could be really close to having people completely functional.
No, wow, that's really amazing.
I think it's awesome. They've apparently very well successfully tested this in lab rats.
Oh, they're still at the lab rat stage?
Well, they said in subsequent tests, rats were able to retrieve a food pellet nearly 70% of the time after having one of these implanted. So after traumatic brain injury, 7 out of every 10 rats can actually regain their function.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Also, I know it's hard to find a lot to say when you have something that awesome staring you in the face. But I can try with this. There was a crash of some kind of astronomical object on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons.
Ooh.
They don't know if it was a comet or an asteroid, but whatever it is hit with such force that it kicked up clay-like minerals. Some scientists think this is notable because they think a similar impact may be what kickstarted life on this planet.
There could be life on the moon?
Well, there could be life on Europa, which is kind of scary considering that I think that was the story of like 2010 Space Odyssey. You know, as long as it didn't hit Titan, because if that pissed off Thanos, we'd all be dead.
Oh, yeah.
I just hope whatever hit this moon wasn't a black object that had 3 by 2 by 1 dimensions. I would be scared shitless. I would lose my mind.
Well, it'll just be interesting. We're already talking about, hey, we're about to colonize our moon. Let's, go ahead and jump off to another one.
Now, wouldn't that be sad? We colonize our moon and suddenly somebody's staring back at us. Look at those little apes down there colonizing their little planet. Speaking of colonization, scientists have figured out that the habitable zone around stars for exoplanets, it's bigger than they thought.
Really?
Yeah,
bigger than our solar system?
Not that our solar system. You know how scientists typically thought that the habitable zone for a planet that could survive, that could hold life as we know it, was in just the same range as the Earth is to the Sun, which they call 1 AU, or an astronomical unit. They thought it had to be strictly 1 AU away from the star. What they found out by surveying planets is that I should say before that an AU is approximately 93 million miles. A new computer model suggests that you can actually have life survive at 0.95 AU, or 88 million miles. That doesn't sound like a lot, but when you consider that's 5 million miles closer to the star, can still hold life. That means that a lot of the systems we surveyed already, we may have to take a second look at, because there may be more planets we could at least take a look at for future colony.
Right. Well, how far, just for reference, how close is Venus?
That is a question I do not know. You're asking me hard stuff now.
I'm sorry.
Well, let me try this, because I have one of these nifty computer thingies. Venus is at over 67 million miles from the Sun.
Okay, so...
That's well outside what we consider to be a habitable zone. It's too close. I don't know what that translates to in AU. Let me see. Maybe I can find out. It's 0.387 AU.
Okay, yeah, that's way...
Is that...
So about halfway, but a little more than halfway between Venus and Earth.
No, I'm sorry. 0.387 is Mercury. Venus is actually 0.723 AU.
Oh, huh.
So it's roughly 3/4 of the distance, but that's still far outside what we consider habitable.
Right.
Well, actually, in that vein, there's new calculations by Danish scientists that say that the universe could collapse at any time. I remember trying to do this before, so you're going to have to bear with me. You know the theory of universal expansion, right?
Uh-huh.
Galaxies are slowly getting further away from each other. And the first model suggested that it's an infinite cycle. Now, Danish scientists applied a new model based on the fact that they've been able to study like Einstein-Rosen molecules for the first time. Einstein-Rosen molecules are when two standard elemental molecules randomly jam themselves together to create this short-life molecule. Okay, it implodes within It implodes within short times because it's not technically supposed to exist, but it does. Okay.
Okay.
Now, the Danish applied that model to the universe, and their belief is that the universe is expanding, but at some point, at random, it'll just contract and destroy itself, similar to an Einstein-Rosen molecule.
Now, are you saying this is going to be an instantaneous thing, or is that still going to, in human years, take a while?
That's kind of a question, because they said that it could happen billions of years from now. It could happen like tomorrow, or it could be happening already, as they put it. It's this weird answer, but the kicker is that several scientists have said that they don't know what makes up an Einstein-Rosen molecule other than this random conflagration of two other molecules. So if they find out that there's forms of matter smaller than the protons, neutrons, electrons, and quarks and make it up, then the whole Einstein-Rosen model falls apart, and so does this theory.
I don't know. Can they even prove it? So that's a legitimate theory that there's something out there smaller than electrons?
I don't think that's a recent theory, but the problem is that all this it's kind of conjecture based on conjecture, because we don't know what makes up an Einstein-Rosen molecule. So to apply that to a model like the universe does seem kind of premature.
Right. We don't even know if they equate or not.
Correct. Just because one exists doesn't mean the other has to exist in the same format.
Right.
Yeah. Also in that vein, there are some scientists that think that the universe is a hologram. A team of physicists say that they've encountered clear evidence that the universe could just be one big projection. There was
It's all just an illusion.
Yeah, really. Now's a bad time. I need more weed before I can talk about something like this. Theoretical physicist Juan I can't even say this, Maldacena. He proposed that the universe is basically a thin web of gravity strings. And that because we can't perceive these strings with the naked eye, we only project the universe as what we can perceive. He thinks that the universe exists in 9 dimensions of space plus 1 of time. Yeah, this sounds like an episode of Doctor Who.
Yeah, it's almost like I feel like you could spin some really cool, sci-fi story out of this and make billions on the money.
It does feel a little bit like he's talking out of his butt, though.
Well, that's why it would be an awesome sci-fi novel and not, actual scientific.
Well, you want science? There was they've done a study that shows that video games can lead to life-threatening conditions.
Oh.
It's a recent case study published in the Journal of Medical Case Reports. So this is not a story where video games lead to you shooting somebody. We're not going there.
Okay.
What the study found was that one man developed a potential life-threatening condition after playing video games 8 hours a day for 4 days straight. Now, the patient Sorry?
No, I'm sorry. So did he, stop at all? Seriously, for 4 days? No
for 4 days, for each of those 4 days, he had an 8-hour gaming session, roughly half your day.
Okay.
He played while in bed. He sought medical help after noticing swelling and pain in his legs. What they found was that because of all the sitting and laying he was doing for such long periods of time, he developed deep vein thrombosis.
Ooh.
Now, what that is that the veins are contracting in his legs just due to, non-usage, and he had multiple blood clots in his legs.
Don't they talk about that with professional gaming?
They talk about that as professional gaming. It's also an issue that the elderly are prone to because they're not as active as they used to be. So this could be, there have been several reports of gamers dying from heart attacks even as young as 21 after a single 12-hour session. So this does bring to mind that this could be a serious problem.
Right. I'm trying to think. There was a commentator, I think his name was Day9. I'm not so big in the professional gaming world, but just the fact that you can have a fully, someone who actually does work out every day and on the side of being a professional gamer or a commentator, and then they still have blood clots and having to go to the hospital. That's a very scary thing. It
is a bad idea. That tells me that every once in a while you really do have to get up from that console and at least go get a beer.
Right.
There was also some jokes going out because we found out that the NSA, as part of their monitoring program, they also monitored Second Life and World of Warcraft for a while. Dorkly decided to put out a faux article about an NSA chief and one of his agents texting each other, and apparently the young agent had infiltrated Counter-Strike. Part of the conversation is, "Hold up, new match is starting," and "Dear God, I've been recruited! I'm on the terrorist side!" "Incredible, just incredible, Johnson. Go along with their actions. You'll be our sleeper double agent. Learn everything you can and report back." "Will do, Chief. If something happens to me, tell my wife and kids I love them." "You're on your computer at home. You can probably tell them yourself."
Oh.
Got a major problem, Chief. What is it, Johnson? Members of the opposing team have begun calling me homosexual slurs.
It's so true, though.
Unfortunately, it is. Although their main complaint seems to be how I keep spinning in circles and firing wildly into the air instead of any questions about my sexual preferences. Wait a sec, sir. They're calling me a noob. Repeat, they're calling me a noob. I'll post a link to that.
Awesome.
There are reports lately that Google may be turning into Skynet from the Terminator franchise. They have recently bought 2 different companies that specialize in robotics, including Boston Dynamics. Boston Dynamics has been known for building biomimetic robots for DARPA, which is a U.S. agency that oversees military research. They even created a Wildcat robot, which is a wireless 4-legged robot that runs at 16 miles per hour, which is faster than humans.
Wow.
I guess the question I have is not necessarily whether or not they're going to take over the world. I just want to know if any of these Wildcats are going to go running down the street mapping things for Google Earth.
How can we utilize this?
Well, as Yahoo put it, give this thing half a brain and a switchblade, and we're doomed.
That's true. But that's what the laws of robotics are for.
Yeah, but criminals don't follow laws.
Dang it.
There's also some concept art. Some of the most recent concept art was regarding future cityscapes that was done by Double Helix. They're the company behind Silent Hill, Homecoming, and Killer Instinct. I will post a link. It was in IO9, and it's probably some of the most futuristic cityscapes I've seen yet. And the last part of, at least, general nerd news I have is that there are several people who say that YouTubers should get a real job. Now, this stems from the recent announcement that YouTube is going to start monitoring their feeds to see who's using video game footage, and those people may come up with almost immediate ID and copyright tags. But some people are saying that that's okay because YouTubers don't really do anything with their time, even though some of them create entire businesses based on them working themselves stupid trying to produce videos.
Right.
It is kind of an unfair statement when there's guys like, let me see, what's he called here? Boogie2988, this really large nerd whose video game reviews were so detailed, he actually got his hands on a PS4 4 days before it came out.
Oh, wow.
I mean, this also leads to questions of what happens with people who use video games as part of a gag or part of their videos, like the Angry Video Game Nerd or Keith Apicary.
Right, where it's purely just a parody use, or like they're not even using it for the intentional game anyway. Exactly.
It's a bad question, but it's one that's going to need to be answered soon. Lastly, what I have is a few pieces of what we call WTF, or what the fuck news. One is from IO9. It's a list of the 11 most sexually depraved things the Roman emperors ever did. I won't read through the article because it disturbs me, but some of the paragraph heads were niece marrying, hiring anal sex experts, sex with your sister, turning a man into your wife, and they don't mean sex change.
Okay.
They mean
Where did they get the sources for this?
I'm not entirely sure, but I'm willing to take it at word because there's no way I want to delve into this world. Also, you know that this is the holiday season. A lot of people have holiday bonuses.
Mm-hmm.
You know there was one lady who got a $25,000 bonus at Costco?
I believe it.
The thing is, she didn't work there.
Wait, what?
Her name is Angela Wong. She's a 30-year-old graphic designer at RetailMeNot.com. She, for her holiday bonus, was given 3 minutes at a South Austin Costco. She went in sneakers and a workout clothes, and she brought her husband as her designated helper, which he was allowed. She'd walked the store before, and in her 3 minutes, they took one of those giant push carts, loaded it up with computers, cameras, bottles of Dom Perignon champagne, and 3 Roomba vacuum cleaners on a flatbed. $25,000 in holiday bonus.
Wow, and they honored that, I would imagine.
Yeah, you know, she had a coworker named Izadi who had a 2-minute trip from Retail Me Not who racked up almost $18,000 by herself. All I can imagine is Retail Me Not is probably saying, "We're not doing this again."
Yeah, we're... Not if you're going to go to places like Costco where you have such a wide range of pricing.
Yeah, well, your holiday bonus next year is 3 minutes in the dollar store. Enjoy. And have you ever heard of a McLaren Cars?
No.
They produce super expensive supercars. You know, cars that generally cost somewhere between $100,000 to $200,000 each. Their latest model is the 12C, but it's been recalled. It's been recalled for possibly the most pathetic reason possible for an expensive car. Defective wiper designs. McLaren, yes, 12C coupes and spiders built from October 10th, 2011 to October 23rd, 2013, which is basically from when they started to now. All 376 cars have been recalled because the wiper motor can stop working in areas of high ambient heat or humidity. So, basically, rain could ruin your wipers.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah, you know, if I pay $200,000 for a car and you're telling me that the motor is defective and I need to bring it back in, you know what? Buy back my car because I'm going to get a Ford.
I guess it would depend on where you lived for that. Like, if you were living, like, middle of the desert, Arizona, you probably wouldn't have to worry about that. But if you're going to live in somewhere like Seattle, then...
But remember, they break down in ambient heat or high humidity, which means either if it rains or if it's high heat, the motor stops working. There is no happy medium here.
Oh, man.
This whole thing is ridiculous. And Square Enix...
How did they miss that? Sorry.
I don't know. I don't know how you justify that. I don't know how you miss that when you've got to be some of the most expensive car designers in the world. Maybe they had a holiday shopping spree and got all the motors from Costco.
It's gotta be it.
Square Enix says a lot of the stupidest things we found recently in video game news. They managed to top themselves because Dengeki interviewed Bravely Default producer Tomio Asano and Chunsoft's Yuichiro Saito. They claim that microtransactions and item charges are just like extra toppings. They were trying to enter two, and these two started talking amongst themselves. It says, quote, spending money is basically fun. For example, it's fun going shopping. Oh, spending money on things is certainly enjoyable. And if the buyer wants something, they can buy it. That's what we're providing. That's service. For example, you're standing in a restaurant eating soba. You may want to make another order of fried tofu to go with it, and that's what we're providing. Of course, you wouldn't provide half as much tofu to encourage that. Oh, of course, and you wouldn't make your food extra salty so the customer needs to buy a drink, but nobody would object to being able to order extra topping for their soba. Right, something like that is perfectly reasonable. So if we gradually make a consumer's games provide more opportunities for services like this, I think it's a more satisfying environment for users, unquote. So, I guess the idea is, they think that the most fun you could possibly have is to spend your money.
Oh, man. That...
Yeah, forget story.
You're entirely missing the point.
Yeah, forget story.
Why you're spending the money because you want what you're getting.
Exactly. Forget story, forget graphics, forget production values, forget legacies of long-standing games. The most fun you're going to have is opening up your wallet.
And seeing it empty out as you spend your money and cry.
Yeah, enjoy your Final Fantasy 15. I think I'll go back to playing D&D, thank you.
Yeah. Well, there, most recently, because I was going to pre-order Lightning Returns for a friend for a birthday, and I noticed that, I'm like, wait, where's the collector's edition release? Because 13.2 had one, and I noticed you can only buy it on the official Square Enix store, and they're asking for like $90.
Oh, that's bullcrap.
It comes with like you do get a silver embossed watch, I think, and like a really nice art book. And that's it. Like, you're not even getting the soundtrack or anything. And the only place you can buy it is on the Square Enix website.
Yeah.
And you get Aerith's costume from Final Fantasy VII as well.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. No, thank you.
I was like, this, I don't know. At least 13.2 had the soundtrack with it, and I'm a big fan of the music, so that got me there. But I don't know if it's really worth getting a collector's edition if... I mean, it's more money than they've ever charged, and B, you're really not... I don't know, if the art book's anything like they've released in the past, it's really not going to be worth it.
Right. Well, something I posted sideways about that you're already aware of. The most realistic Sailor Moon lingerie ever has been released.
That's right.
A company called Peach John has actually gotten the Sailor Moon license. These are official products. For $48 per set, you can actually get Sailor Moon lingerie, which is like a bra with a Sailor Fuku on top, small ribbon collars, satin bloomers with small bows on the back, colored bows on the front, and they have them for all 5 of the original Sailor Scouts. The funny thing was, I went through their website when I could finally find the right translating program, and I didn't go through them all, but I did find out that the ones for Sailor Mercury, Moon, and Mars, they're already sold out, and they've been out for a week at that time.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
I mean, it's an intriguing thing because I can't say that it's sexually provocative to me, but I must admit, somebody I knew that was wearing this, they would probably have my attention. I'm not going to say I jumped them or anything, but it would be a case of, wow.
Well, just the first thought when you showed that to me before, I was just thinking, I would love to wear that to some, really awesome pajama party or something somewhere and totally show off.
Well, in the interview we did with you, you said you had very few body issues, and I was intrigued when you said you would wear something like this, because it's not one of those cases where I'm looking for like the perfect perv or something, but it is curious, and I'd like to see this on a person instead of just on a mannequin. And I can't even say that's for sexual reasons. That's just because I have a high curiosity factor that I'm in touch with.
Well, the design itself is actually pretty good for you. If you're going to say, okay, here's, Sailor Fuku lingerie, that's basically what I would imagine it looking like. So it did a pretty good job there.
Yeah, I must admit they have a lot of good thought into it, but apparently the only way I'm going to get my hands on a set to give to anybody would be eBay at this point. Because they sold like crazy. Don't worry, I'll keep looking. Also, there's a comedian. He's self-identified as Randy Leckie. He thought he was going to play a funny joke. What he did was he baked several cookies in the shape of iPhones, and he would drive around pretending to talk into it looking for a cop.
No.
He actually had a cop, according to his Twitter, that drove by him and didn't notice, so he turned around, caught up to the cop, and started pretending to talk on it. Cop pulled him over like he was supposed to. When he got to the car window, Leckie took a bite out of the cookie and just asked if there was a problem. So the cop said, "Just wait here, sir." Went back to his car, came back several minutes later, and arrested Leckie. Turns out Leckie has several tickets for, he had warrants for several parking tickets.
Ha!
So he actually had, at the end of his Twitter feed, a picture of himself holding up the warrant for his arrest and his processing paperwork, and it says at the bottom, "Wasn't worth it, I'm an idiot, no more iPhone cookies."
Wow. Yeah, don't try to get yourself pulled over if you're wanted.
I doubt he knew about that, but at the same time, there were several people that had complaints about this, and they do have a point that this is a hell of a waste of police resources for your bad joke.
Right. Well, except as this case proved, it's a reason to pull someone over and potentially find something else on them. And apparently they did in this case.
Yeah, know yourself before you pull something this stupid. Also, there was a 6-year-old who kissed a girl on the hand, as he puts it, and his school suspended him and labeled him a sexual harasser.
A 6-year-old?
Yeah, he's from Cannon City Schools out in Colorado. His name is Hunter Yelton, and there's a girl he's apparently sweet on in his class who does seem to like him at some point. To what degree, I don't know. The reports vary as to whether or not he kissed her on the cheek or on the hand. Either way, this isn't like an open-mouth kiss or anything between 6-year-olds. But because it bothered the teacher and the mother of this girl so much, they filed a sexual harassment claim and got him suspended. Kind of sad when you think about it.
6-year-olds.
Right. The school did eventually drop the claim, thankfully, so this kid isn't going to go through life with sexual offender on his juvenile record. At the same time, he's fucking 6.
Yeah, you're not even capable. Like, I don't even care how early you hit puberty. You're still not capable of even, I don't know. Yeah,
there's no evil or malice here. This is just stupid.
Wow.
Speaking of stupid, there was a young man named Rhys McKee. He's 25 out of New Zealand. He accidentally started something he couldn't stop. What happened was last New Year's Eve, he met a woman that identified herself as Katie from Washington, D.C. Okay? They met at a different city. He met while she thought she was being abandoned by friends. They came back and retrieved her. She apparently, according to him, leaned back in to say goodbye and whispered, "Find me," in his ear. He didn't know much about how to find her, so what he did was he launched a social media campaign, including a large page on Facebook that said, "Help me find Katie," to find this girl. Apparently, every Katie in the D.C. area was just harangued by different people asking questions until the woman was actually found, and she was followed by several people with cameras trying to find out if this was the right person.
Oh, wow.
I'm sorry, they met in Hong Kong on New Year's Eve, so it was about as romantic of a story as you get. The problem was that the woman was so freaked out by all these people following her she didn't know. She's disconnected all of her social media sites. She has no more Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, nothing. And
I don't blame her.
Yeah, and they did find the right person, but because of the backlash and this woman was so freaked out, McKee was actually forced to issue an apology and take down the page. And
except how is she going to see the apology if she's no longer connected?
Maybe it was just an apology to all these people who were jumping her, and it's just his way of trying to stop the whole thing. It's kind of a double-edged sword because some people have a point that he accidentally initiated a case of cyberstalking. At the same time, though, he's 25. He just thought he was being romantic.
Right. Well, and you hear all these stories about, oh, you post something on Facebook and it goes viral, and then, the right person sees it. Like,
Right.
you don't imagine people actually trying to stalk, outside of the internet. You just hope that eventually someone's going to get, the post and be like, oh, I know that person, and then,
Right.
message them or something.
Right. It's just one of those sad instances. This is not exactly what the fuck news, but it caused me to say what the fuck. There is a 16-year-old teenager who does a killer impersonation of Elvis singing Blue Christmas. His name is David Thabal. I sent you a link. Why don't you go ahead and play it, so I'll just insert some of his audio right here. But he does an incredible rendition of Elvis.
Okay.
Have a blue Christmas without you. I'll be
Kid is good,
so
actually.
blue, just thinking
I tried to figure. It's okay. I tried to figure out if this was a dubbing. I'm pretty sure it's not. Kid even sneers like Elvis.
Decorations of red on a green
But
Christmas
it already has more than
tree.
650 or 625,000 views as of last week.
Won't be the same day.
He's going to make some girl very happy and probably uncomfortable in her jeans.
And when
Oh, yeah.
those blue snowflakes
But
Probably got a growing fan base at this point.
oh, I'm sure. I just hope he finds something original. You can't make your life just doing Elvis
I'll listen to the
impersonations.
rest of it when we're done.
Yeah, you can't just live your life doing Elvis impersonations.
Yeah,
I hope he
true.
finds his own voice soon. We only have two more pieces of what the fuck news. One was that a lady pled guilty in second-degree murder and pushing her husband off a cliff.
I did hear that story.
Yeah, Jordan Lynn Graham, she's 22 years old, was accused of shoving her...
The fact
What?
Oh no, I was gonna say, didn't she? Because it's not only that it's not that she accidentally shoved her husband over. It's the fact that she tried to hide it and then lied about it and forgot her lies.
Yeah, the circumstances are still kind of mysterious. It's pretty sure that she shoved her husband off a cliff. Her husband of 8 days. What isn't known is that in what context she did it, because they're pretty sure that she did do it, although she claims that he grabbed her and she pushed him too hard. But the problem became is that, yes, she went home and immediately concocted all these weird stories, then somehow miraculously led them to the body 3 days later. There were all these weird circumstances. She was up for first-degree murder, but the day of closing arguments, she suddenly pled guilty to second-degree murder. So instead of getting life with the possibility of death, she instead only got 25 to life. It's a big question mark because some people say that in the 2 days after her marriage, she started complaining that things weren't going well. I have no idea what to say about all this. All I know is if my wife and I fight, I'm not doing it in Yosemite.
Right? Oh man, I don't even know. Like, how do you even get to that point where you're fighting on the cliff?
I don't know. There's varying reports that says she drove up there or he drove up there. I have no idea what made them think that was a good idea.
Yeah, especially when you're fighting.
And online or on Facebook, I've seen people post about a Biracorn. They say is the ultimate wedding art piece. I09, I did one better. I have a unicorn. I have a unicorn that was a carousel horse that cost $3,000 in materials. Let me see. Anna Shoemaker met her husband to be at the Burning Man community. What they did was they took a carousel horse, fitted it with a custom base, fuel tanks, a CO2 pressurized corny keg, a spout, an air pressurizer, and a hammered copper horn and a propane pilot. What this produces is a unicorn that spouts fire from its horn, sneezes glitter, and pees lemonade.
Oh.
I have no idea why anyone thought this would be the best thing to do for a wedding. They apparently want a unique art piece. Well, it's very unique. I suppose if you take the lemonade out of his crotch and hold it over the horn, you have lemon tea. Why it sneezes glitter, I still don't know.
Yeah,
Some people, they just want to be different.
Yeah, I imagine this will make some bronies stay, that's for sure.
It's not the Rainbow Dash I had in mind. Now, in short, what happened in the last couple of days was we interviewed Chris Hare again, and I'm going to try and remember everything that he talked about. He's a project lead on City of Titans, which is going to be a new superhero MMO, hopefully in 2015. Again, Chris, if you're listening to this, I apologize for losing the recording, and I'll try to reveal anything I can remember that wasn't protected by an NDA agreement. He did say that they're going to eventually try and move their headquarters of Missing World Media to Seattle, Washington. Apparently, also one of the first things they're going to do is open an online store on their website, including a City of Titans football jersey. And unfortunately, I'm a big football fan and a video games fan, so that just screams that I'm going to be lighter a couple $100. The number on the jerseys is going to be 33, which is a special number in superhero MMO lore. When City of Heroes was announced to be closing, what happened was there were so many people that signed on to the first game zone, Atlas Park, that there were 33 instances of it open. Imagine how many players that must have been.
A lot.
Yeah, must have been a bunch of jammed areas, and they kept that the 33rd instance open until the game actually closed. Somebody was always in the 33rd instance. But he did mention that inside the game, the fictional city is going to have its own football stadium and team called the Tridents. He did mention that fish people may come out of the harbor and harangue the mascot of the Tridents. He mentioned that there would be zones in space and probably underwater. He did also say that in a couple months we will hopefully be able to talk to him about more technical details when some of the NDAs come down. They had a Kickstarter that was for, I believe, $90,000. They ended up getting funded for a total of about $700,000. So, and that money's being put to use, although they had to find a little extra room in the budget because apparently they forgot to buy licenses for antiviral software at the time.
Oh, no.
Well, fortunately, they haven't put their servers up for general use yet, so it was just a matter of getting the licenses. And I'm trying to think what else we talked about that wasn't specific. He did mention that there will be seasonal releases of stores, so those people that weren't able to get in on the Kickstarter and buy certain levels of things, you'll have the opportunity later after the game is released. So if you're looking to buy your Penthouse Super Base, you'll have your opportunity. And I don't believe we had a chance to talk about Powers because he was still busy in the technical aspect. They did have to pay for some of the previous use of the Unreal Engine, which is what they're planning to base the game on. The look of the game is going to be a combination of photorealistic backgrounds and more standard Unreal versions of the character models. And unfortunately, I think I just summed up about 40 minutes of conversation in about 5. He did talk about quite a bit. He has a wealth of stories. He's a fun person to talk to. I'm just ashamed that one of my interviews was lost in technical stupidity. So hopefully that gets resolved.
Well, if he says he's willing to come back on later, hopefully you can redeem yourself.
Sorry, I was actually muting myself. That was stupid. He agreed to come back in a couple months when hopefully some of the NDAs were lifted and he could talk about some of the more technical things they're working on. I don't need to know game specs personally. I'm more interested in the concepts and how the game will work. So I'm hoping that's the kind of conversations we can have. I can't think of anything else. I did know that next week we're supposed to be with the regular people, Steve, Jesse, and V, reading the first 6 issues of the Adjectiveless X-Men series, the all-female team. Because, as we said, they're kind of an anomaly in comics, and it'd be nice to see how it's doing, at least.
Although, sure.
I may have to send them an email and amend that, because it just occurred to me that I think 2 or 3 of the issues in that series were part of a crossover. It may be kind of hard to pick out story when it's skipping through parts of a long crossover.
Right, uh-oh.
So, I'll have to check the lineup of books out there. I think that's everything. I want to say again thank you to Carolyn and Sal for agreeing to come on. I know Sal had technical difficulties, but he tried to be here for the show. And he sent me a couple tweets. He'll come on a later episode because he thinks it's fun. Or I shouldn't say thinks it's fun. He says it's fun. So I'm glad to know we're at least entertaining. I mean, did you have a good time, Carolyn?
Oh yeah, I know I'm not V, but hopefully I was at least somewhat entertaining.
No, you did great. I don't know why you're so worried. I mean, part of news is discussion. This is a virtual coffee table. You know, you're supposed to think of this as the area where you can put your feet up, say what you want, no matter how ridiculous or any questions you have, because goodness knows there's probably people tuning into this who's going, "What's a Thanos?"
That's true.
So, you know,
I guess oh no, just when you asked me to come on at first, it was just very weird. You know, I'm so used to listening to podcasts that, you know, oh wait, I can actually talk this time. All right.
Well, no, I mean, if you want to do it another time in the future, just ask. We don't mind people coming on. And we are generally a comic book show, but we try and hit most of the major pop culture and bits of nerddom out there. So we have no mind if people want to come in. Actually, now that it occurs to me, maybe I'll ask Sal to come in on pop culture profiling. Do you know what that part of the show is about?
I don't think you didn't do that this time.
Pop culture profiling is kind of the fun we do. What we do is we take the powers from existing comic book characters, and we say, what if one person in a regular world had these? What kind of person would this produce?
Oh, that would be really cool.
Yeah, we've done major characters, like we determined that Superman would probably be the world's worst villain. Batman is too obsessive compulsive to really function. Shadowcat would, you know, somebody with the powers of Shadowcat would probably be a pretty big jerk. As a matter of fact, I think like some of the few characters we figured that actually could lead to altruistic and better people would be like Cyclops and Robin, I believe. You know, it was very interesting when we tried to discuss how sex would work for Clayface from the Batman villains.
Oh dear.
It led to the operative word, I guess, would be experimentation.
Mm-hmm. Well, hey, that's where all the good ideas come from, is when you do stuff like that.
Yeah, you know, we spent so long discussing powers, we actually started talking about them as people, and then we kind of supplemented the previous talk with a talk about how these powers would affect personal, physical relationships. You know, like, would Superman accidentally kill a woman?
Oh man, yeah.
You gotta admit, when
something you have to think about, and they never talk about it.
I know, when men get stimulated, they tend to lose control of their faculties. So it occurs to us that when Superman, or with somebody with super strength gets stimulated, a woman could get seriously hurt.
Yeah, unless she's a superhero.
Yeah. Well, when you think about it from the opposite, think about a regular man that would lay down with somebody with like the powers of Wonder Woman. You know, she has her first orgasm, and he could be missing his member.
Oh. Somehow I feel like it'd be hard just to get her to orgasm in the first place.
It sounds like it... I like the way you phrase that, because to me it sounds like a combination of, do you have a device strong enough, or would it take like punching in the uterus? I mean, how would this work?
I don't know. I guess it depends on the super woman.
You know, it's my worst enemy, Fistules! Oh well. I don't want to keep you any later because I think there's more than enough I got to clip together here. So I will... I think this is a good place to say goodnight, so I invite you to roll with us again next week. Thank you very much. I am Jeremy.
And I'm Carolyn.
Have a great one.
Bye.